Who's also saying hi? Good evening. I call this Iowa City Community School Board meeting on Tuesday, May 14th, 2019 to order. My name is Janet Godwin, and I want to thank those in the audience, those watching on YouTube, and those following on Twitter for joining us tonight. I'll start by introducing those at the table with me. To my right, Superintendent Steve Murley, Directors Ruthina Malone, Phil Hemingway, Lori Rotland. To my left, Paul Ressler, Sean Eystone, J.P. Clausen, and Kim Colvin, Recording Secretary. The public is reminded that if they wish to speak, they need to complete a speaker form found at the table in the lobby and turn it in. During community comment, persons may speak to the board about topics relevant to the district. All community comment directed at non-agenda items and agenda items shall take place at the beginning of the meeting during the community comment section of the agenda. First up, we've got our student representative updates. City High, you're up first. Good evening.
Hello, my name is Lottie Goodell, and I'm a senior, so this will be the last time that you guys hear from me. But since we last spoke, City High's drama department pulled off a massive production of Les Mis, one of the hardest Broadway musicals out there. After a series of canceled and delayed rehearsals, everything fell into place and time to sell out both evening shows. Students under the leadership of Chakori Walker traveled to Des Moines to compete in the African American History Quiz Bowl. The returning state champion team walked away with yet another state title, so we are very, very proud of them. The end of the year is truly wrapping up in just so many wonderful ways. To celebrate Arbor Day, the Best Buddies program traveled to Terry Trueblood to plant trees, while City High's band and jazz band programs were invited to play the Iowa Band Association concert. Just last night, City High held the Senior Honors Program, a chance to recognize the graduating class. The school handed out over 30 scholarships as well as many awards commending students for academic, service, and leadership achievements. We just had under 600 students in the Iowa Memorial Union the weekend before last celebrating prom. As the dance took place on May 4th, everything from lightsaber tabletop decorations to real-life stormtrooper reenactors took part in the Star Wars theme. A special thank you goes out to the parents for such an amazing after party. City High won the Mississippi Valley Conference Sportsmanship Award for the winter season. Officials rate sportsmanship of players, coaches, and fans. This is a very special appreciation of the positivity and kindness that exists in our athletic programs. City High's student newspaper, The Little Hawk, just had 8 stories or designs that won best in their category for the entire state of Iowa from the Iowa High School Press Association, as well as 20 second or third place awards. The Little Hawk's online section was also named an S&O Distinguished Site, along with only 20 other newspapers in the country. For the 4th year in a row, City High's Business Club students swept the competition at the J.A. Titan Challenge, bringing home $4,500 in scholarships. The club, led by Mr. Lehman, has won a total of $18,000 in the past 4 years. Our City High STEM group qualified for the national competition by placing 3rd in the state of Iowa. A team comprised entirely of freshmen developed a project surrounding this year's theme, artificial intelligence, which consisted of an essay and build portion. Finally, I would just like to say that the ICSD has long made sustainability a goal for itself, but has a way to go to become even more environmentally responsible, which is why I'm also very excited to be here tonight with some other students from City High who are here to talk to you about the importance of green energy, sustainability, and what the district can do to make these goals a reality. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lottie. Thank you so much for coming to our school board meetings, and wish you the very best. We'll miss having you. Thank you. Next up, we've got West High.
My name is Paras Basuk, and I am the school board representative for West High. As the school year comes to an end, West students have made the most of the wonderful weather and the busy months of April and May. In April, all sophomores, juniors, and freshmen took the newly formatted ISASP tests. Students were able to smoothly take the now online exams. 2 weeks ago, we held elections for Student Senate President and Vice President for next year. The winning ticket has outlined its own and Student Senate's goals for next year. One of these initiatives is a sustainability effort in our school community. We hope to implement an uneaten food waste collection system at the beginning of the year, next year, and to eventually implement a full composting system. Best Buddies held its annual fundraiser talent show on April 25th. With a variety of student music and talent, as well as exhibitions of art, the night was a great success for this important part of the West High community. West High's journalism team was labeled a 2019 finalist by the Iowa High School Press Association. Our STEM team ranked first in their divisions as at state competitions this year. Additionally, the 321 Academic Challenge team also placed first in Iowa at their competition in April. We hosted and won the state math competition this year, taking 6 of the top 10 places. Junior Selena Hua has been selected for a commission of her artwork by the Toyota of Iowa City that will be displayed at the Iowa Arts Festival this year. This is part of a program that seeks to involve artists in Iowa and promote the arts. West's biology department was awarded a Foundation of Excellence grant that will allow them to continue offering West High students high-level instruction and hands-on experience in class. As a part of the cultural guest lecture series, lawyer Yolanda Rivera spoke to West students about her work with those seeking asylum in detention centers in Texas. 100 West High band members took a trip to Orlando, Florida in April, where they marched in at Disney World and Universal Studios. And more than 1,200 individual AP exams were taken by students in the past 2 weeks, which is a record number for West High. Senior Caroline Young received the John E. Briggs Scholarship last week, which is an award for the attendance of a Iowan University and outstanding academic performance. Additionally, several of the jazz band members at West High participated in the selective Iowa All-State Jazz Band this weekend at the Iowa Bandmasters Association Festival. The West High Jazz Bands will also be performing at the Friday Night Concert Series this Friday night. Finally, this weekend, West High held its Enchanted Forest-themed prom. Hundreds of students enjoyed music, food, and photos at the event at the IMU. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for coming to school board meetings this year, Bruce. Really appreciate it. Up next, Liberty High.
Good evening, my name is Ryan Eystone and I am a sophomore at Liberty High School, and here I am today giving the school board update with things that have happened since the last update. First, I would like to start off with Phase 3 of construction at Liberty. The construction company has now blocked off most of the entrances on the side where the addition will be built and has leveled the ground. On the other side of the drive that we have, they have leveled ground for the bus barn and have built part of the base up. Everyone is excited to see the final product and can't wait to utilize that space. Next, I would like to talk about our AP testing. We have had all of our languages, our U.S. history, psychology, physics, and government testing last week. Yesterday we had our biology testing, and today we had our human geography and our calculus testing, finishing up on Thursday with our world history. On Saturday, May 4th, Liberty's music groups went to Cedar Rapids, Washington High School to participate in the Iowa High School Musical Association's large group. Band and orchestra both got Division I ratings, which is the highest rating you can get. 3 of the 5 choral groups got Division I ratings as well, with the other 2 getting a Division II, which is still a very good rating. Now I'd like to talk about some of our sports achievements. Neely Morris has won the Kinetic title, which includes all 10 high schools in the Iowa City and Cedar Rapids area. Is currently the school record holder for the lowest 9 holes and lowest 18 holes in golf, and is the first Liberty student athlete to win a major golf competition. And Ashlyn Keeney set Liberty, Drake, and even national records at Drake relays. She won the 3,000 meters, setting a record for the fastest time for a freshman at Drake or in the state of Iowa to run this, with her time being the 8th fastest in the nation. BPA recently went to Anaheim, California to go to nationals. We have had many people from BPA qualify, and it sounded like many of them had a very good time. And to conclude, I would like to talk about the 5 retirees that we will miss dearly from Liberty. We gained these teachers, and we are glad that we had such amazing teachers and hope that they all enjoyed their 2 years at Liberty. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for representing Liberty this year, and I hope to see you back. Thank you. Okay, we'll move next to ICEA update.
President Godwin, Vice President Ressler, Directors, Superintendent Murley. I'm Brady Shutt. I'm the President of ICEA. So it's great to be here tonight. On behalf of ICEA teachers and para-educators, please accept my sincere thank you for your engagement in and dedication and respect for the collective bargaining process that will culminate in your votes tonight on the contracts for teachers, para-educators, and the employees in the physical plant group. Special public recognition goes to Chief Human Resource Officer Chase Ramey for his leadership and engagement through this process, and Directors Godwin, Clausen, and Ressler for their dedication, and to all of the directors for their public support to the staff and students in our school district. This board has consistently stated and demonstrated its high level of respect for its staff and students, and this year's engagement in the collective bargaining process is further proof of that. For the public record, the contracts being voted on tonight keep all allowable language in the contract. Teachers and paraeducators voted overwhelmingly to ratify the agreement, and we urge you to do the same with your vote tonight. I also want to publicly recognize my colleagues, and Ryan had a nice segue for me, who are retiring this school year. I've been around the district long enough to know many of them personally and professionally, and all of them are amazing teachers who have dedicated themselves to making a difference in the lives of our students. And that's the beauty of the public schools and those who have chosen this calling. That's what we do. We make a difference in people's lives. And I've been around long enough to also know and appreciate that our work in making a difference is not just in our teacher teams and our classrooms. It extends to all of the roles across the district. So on behalf of ICEA, I would like to extend a special thank you and congratulations to a couple of folks. Jane Fry, our Director of Employee Relations. I spoke with Jane just a few minutes ago to extend our congratulations. And also a special thank you and congratulations to Craig Hansel, our Chief Financial Officer. Craig has been a leader in the public schools since 1985, and I've really appreciated working with Craig professionally on our district insurance committee and through the collective bargaining process. And I know that Craig, this might not be known by many people in the public, is taught, trained, and mentored hundreds of other business leaders in our state and across our region, which I really respect a lot. I also enjoy Craig's sharp sense of humor and keen wit, and so Craig, I know you might have other plans, but I just want to make sure you know that I will save you a spot right next to me at the monthly insurance meetings in case you want to come. So.
Thank you, Brady. Now we'll move to community comment. First up, we've got Braden Marker, followed by Massimo Beggars.
Hello, my name is Braden Marker. I'm an 8th grade representative of Southeast Junior High. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here because I'm worried about the climate. I'm worried about our climate change. As you know from many speakers tonight, the UN Council of Scientists have told us that we have 11 years to drastically change our ways if we hope to have a livable planet. The homework assignment for all governments, including schools, is clear. You have to cut your CO2 emissions by 45% in the next decade if we want to be part of the solution. This is for all parts of our schools, not just our electricity. This means cutting our energy consumption through better efficiency. This means investing in clean energy like solar. And last of all, this means investing in electric buses like schools in Minnesota, instead of toxic diesel buses that spew CO2 emissions. This means better recycling and better composting. We need to think about the carbon footprint of every operation we execute with the schools. Otherwise, we will become part of the problem. And it's a big problem. Last year, CO2 emissions increased globally by 2.7% and in Iowa by 3%. Think about that. Instead of cutting our emissions drastically, like we need to be, we're actually increasing. Everyone saw the report last week that we have entered the 6th extinction and that 1 million species are on track for extinction. Everyone saw the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's report last week that we have reached record levels of carbon emissions. So, the question tonight is, what are we doing about this? Are we doing everything possible or just the minimum? Are administrators training their staff in climate change? And finally, what about the students? We get a little bit of information about climate change here and there, but isn't it time for all students to have actual courses in climate education? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Braden. Massimo, followed by Alex Ho.
Hello. My name is Massimo Beggars. Picciotto Beggars, sorry. Thanks for the chance to speak today. This week will be the 9th week of my climate strike. That is 9 weeks, every Friday, missing school and homework that I have to make up later, in order to ask you to please act on climate change. We have been joined by students from many schools, by parents, the 100 Grannies, the Plastic Free Movement, and the Sunrise Movement. Football star Tim Dwight held a solar teach-in. Iowa Poet Laureate Mary Swander did a reading. Phil Hemingway has joined us many times. Thank you for talking with us, Mr. Hemingway, even if you don't always agree with us. It has been great to exchange ideas. The Press Citizen, Gazette, and Little Village covered us twice. Iowa Public Radio has done 2 stories, broadcasting across the state. CBS and Fox News, and even The Guardian in London, covered our strike. So it's kind of sad that no school administrators ever come out to talk to us, or even meet Tim Dwight or Mary Swander. Kind of feels like the administrators don't think we matter. Our views don't matter. But we do matter, and our future is at stake. In 9 weeks, Iowa has experienced historic flooding in western Iowa and along the Mississippi River in eastern Iowa. My mom sent me a video of downtown Davenport getting flooded. In 9 weeks, 2 historic cyclones wiped out coastal communities in Mozambique for the first time. In 9 weeks, Vietnam hit record high temperatures. 112 people died in heat waves in India last week. In the last 9 weeks, the UN released a major study that 1 million species are going extinct by the time I reach your age. In 9 weeks, our CO2 concentration levels topped 415 parts per million for the first time in millions of years. For comparison, 350 parts per million is what scientists say is the acceptable limit for survival. But here's the good news. In 9 weeks, school districts and cities and countries have declared a climate emergency and are moving to cut CO2 emissions by 50% and reach zero emissions by 2050. In these 9 weeks, school districts like Madison, Wisconsin have committed to 100 renewable energy. Isn't that great? You have 3 choices tonight. You can do nothing and dismiss us as if we don't matter. You can do something symbolic that sounds nice but doesn't really amount to much. Or you can really make a climate resolution that really means something, that is something that will last and is something that is big. We are us kids are the future of Iowa City, so please do what I say is number 3. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Massimo. Appreciate it. Alex, followed by Diego Biggers.
Hello. I'm Alex Howe, an 8th grader from Southeast Junior High, and as you may know, every Friday I'm joined by many other strikers of the district to protest for climate action, and these are our demands. At Southeast Junior High, we expect excellence. In an age of undeniable and catastrophic climate change, this means we expect excellence in climate action from our teachers, administrators, our district superintendent, and the Iowa City School Board. We are joining hundreds of thousands of students every week in over 100 countries to protest for climate action. We refuse to go to class until adults take action. This week will be our 9th week to strike. We agreed with Swedish high school student Greta Thunberg, who was nominated for the Nobel Prize of Peace. We have run out of excuses and are running out of time. According to the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, made up of the top scientists in the world, we only have a decade to cut our carbon emissions in half. In order to have a livable future, we must completely transition to a zero carbon society by 2050. and this year we would be the same age as many of our teachers. Last year in Iowa, CO2 emissions increased by 3%, despite all of our wind energy for electricity. In 2018, global emissions reached record levels. More than 50% of the electricity for our school buildings is generated by coal-fired plants, the largest contributor to CO2 emissions. While some schools have geothermal energy for heating and cooling, only one building in the entire district will have solar panels next year. Over 6,000 schools across the country are powered by solar energy, including schools in Kelowna, Crawfordsville, Dubuque, Cedar Rapids, Decorah, Burlington, Iowa Falls, and the Quad Cities. We demand that the Iowa City School Board lead on clean energy and climate change and ask solar companies to make bids for special plans for solar in our schools, such as third-party plan agreements, power purchase agreements, which would cost little, save the district money from the electricity costs, and allow us to use solar technology for science courses. We call on all of our teachers and administrators to make climate action a daily part of our school, in all of our courses, in our activities, and the daily operations of the school. From the carbon footprint of our buildings to our buses and our food services. No more excuses. Climate action now. Our future as students depends on it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. Diego, followed by Yardley Whalen.
Hello, my name is Diego Picciotto Beggars, and I'm a junior at City High. Today, the city of Zurich in Switzerland declared a climate emergency. Today in Sydney, Australia, Greenpeace supporters climbed the Harbour Bridge, calling out to Prime Minister Scott Morrison to declare a climate emergency. Every day, more cities are declaring climate emergencies. Today, we're asking you to take action. Like my brother said, you have three options. You can continue to agree with us, simply acknowledging the fact that we have a crisis on our hands and release a climate resolution that will not accomplish anything. You can ignore us, or you can begin the process of reshaping the framework of our schools in order to reduce the carbon footprint of our community. We need you to work under the IPCCS's standards to reduce our carbon emissions in half in the next 11 years, which can be done by installing solar panels on our schools and implementing a climate-based curriculum. We don't want a symbolic declaration. We want a resolution that holds the administration directly accountable and effectively makes changes to our school district. Thank you.
Thank you, Diego. Yardley, followed by St. Brady.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yardley Whalen, and I am a junior at City High, and I have been striking for 4 weeks for solar energy and a climate curriculum in our schools. To be frank, today, as you all sit before us willful and passionate students, I do not want you to fall prey to the myths that solar energy in our schools would be financially irresponsible and therefore a pipe dream. You and I both know that that is not true. In fact, I have seen past receipts of the school's energy bills myself. Electricity is the school's highest expenditure district-wide after personnel costs. It is also the most problematic. One AP research student at City High has found that each year, city's electricity releases 2,500 metric tons of CO2. That is over 5.5 million pounds of CO2 emissions, and that is horrific. To put that into perspective, the world's largest commercial plane weighs about 1.1 million, so take 5 of those. Since solar is becoming increasingly more popular, the prices have been driven down more and more each day. Of course, solar panels are like any other product. You pay more for quality and you pay more for higher quality and the longer they will last. But that is just for raw cost and installation. After that, the school will become sustainable by making its own energy, reducing the money spent on energy until it is eventually obsolete. Naomi Maurice, our AP research student, found that upon implementation of solar energy, our carbon emissions would be slashed by 60%. Now, on a lighter note, I would like to clear up a misconception of our demands of solar energy. Yes, the solar panels still make energy even if it's cloudy. You cannot believe the amount of students and adults alike asking about that. Now, I know you think we may be naive in our understandings of the logistics and financials involved, but I hope you all remember back to your first day of high school econ class, where the first thing they taught you was simply put, investing now means saving later. Thank you.
Thank you, Yardley. Appreciate it. Esty, followed by Lillian Pribyl.
I'm Esty Brady. I'm a junior at City High. Climate change is undeniably the most important issue the world faces today. And our schools are places where students go to learn more than just each given subject every day. It's where we learn how to interact with one another, work together, how to meet deadlines and follow through on what what is expected of us, and exactly what the issues are in the world that we may be expected to solve. All are skills that are crucial to being a well-functioning adult who can add to their community once they graduate. Well, the deadline is 2030, and according to the UN climate report that came out last October, this assignment is huge, bigger, and much more important than anything mankind has ever been assigned before. Every student must learn about this issue before they graduate and go out into the world, educated and ready to make lifestyle and career decisions that will minimize the amount of damage they do to the environment and choose to be a positive influence to push more people around them to be environmentally conscious in their daily lives. Yes, some students will go on to do this regardless of what they're taught in school, but in order for every graduate to have the knowledge they need to make these decisions, it must be taught in school. Students are busy, involved in sports, musicals, jobs, college courses, clubs, and so much more. Students cannot be expected to solve the issue of climate change once they get out of school without sufficient knowledge on how it came to be and how it can be solved, of course. But not every student has the time and patience to educate themselves on their own time. That's why it must be a part of our everyday curriculums. I know this may seem like a challenging addition, as the list of what students must be taught before they graduate is long, and there are only so many periods of only so many days to teach them, but there is no subject, no issue that is more crucial to the future of this planet. It's only logical that when we go to school every day, it's a part of what we learn and talk about on a daily basis. We don't just go into our school buildings and the issue disappears. It becomes more prominent as we are getting prepared to be the adults who will soon have this responsibility on our backs, if it isn't already. We're asking you to ensure that when we go to school, we're provided with adequate knowledge to solve this issue, because if we're not, how can we be expected to fix it? Thank you.
Thank you, Esty. Lillian, followed by Nina Stikopoulos.
Good evening. My name is Lillian Pribyl, and I'm a senior at City High School. I preface my arguments with one request for the board. I'm aware that party politics influence nearly every part of our lives, but I ask you to set aside any preconceived notions of the politicization of solar panels in our schools. Solar panels are a completely bipartisan opportunity. I live a few miles outside of Iowa City on my family's farm and have watched as very conservative neighbors have installed their own solar panels. My own father, who frankly is not at all concerned and is very skeptical about the issue of climate change, installed an array of panels on our roof last summer. When I asked him why, he told me he did it because it was a good investment. He had seen our neighbors pleased with their lowered electricity bills and decided that it was a good option for him. Countless others like him exist. Renewable energy is not simply a desperate attempt to save the planet from peril. It is a growing industry with incentives for all. Regardless of your personal political preferences, I ask you to make the right decision and install panels on ICCSD buildings like the school I study in. I attend the great school that leads due to a conscious choice that my parents made 7 years ago. That decision was to open and enroll me and my sister into the Iowa City Community School District. That choice was a result of months of questioning and weighing positives and negatives, which ultimately led them to making the right choice. This afforded me countless opportunities that I would not have had were I to have attended my previous school. Now, why am I telling you all this, you ask? To kiss up to you, maybe? To get you to like me? No. I am here standing before you to tell you that one of the reasons my parents chose to send me to this school district was because it is a trailblazer in education, with a history of excellence. However, ICCSD has now fallen behind the curve, particularly on the issue of sustainability. I am fully aware that there is a budget crisis, but we need to follow the example of other schools in our area and use solar panels as an opportunity to address this financial situation. In Crawfordsville, a school has turned using 90% solar energy, therefore saving money and keeping the schools open. Iowa Falls, Burlington, Bennett, Knoxville, Kelowna, Eldon, and Fairfield are other schools which have done the same. I'm ashamed that we haven't chosen to be an example for these small school districts, and instead we're letting them lead the way for us. We have the opportunity to be leaders, and you owe it to future students to make the right financial and moral decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Lillian. Nina, followed by, something Cochran, S. Cochran. I'm sorry, I cannot read the first name, I apologize. So, Nina, thank you.
Hello, my name is Nina Levezos-Stakopoulos, and I'm a junior at Iowa City High School. In 2014, the Iowa Supreme Court ruled in favor of Eagle Point Solar Energy when the Iowa Utility Board wanted to prohibit the Energy Corporation from selling the City of Dubuque solar panels due to Iowa Service Territory Law. When Eagle Point installed solar panels on the roof of a municipal building of Dubuque in 2011, Alliant Energy, the electric utility that serves the city, appealed to the City Council. Alliant claimed that Eagle Point would be acting as a utility, therefore infringing on Alliant's legal electrical monopoly in Dubuque. When the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Eagle Point, they established that the installation was legal through third-party purchase agreements. Third-party purchase agreements function by having companies install solar panels on a customer's property at little to no cost. The installation is through the expense of the solar company. In our case, we hope to have solar installed in our schools. The logistics behind this are that the energy produced offsets the customer's utility bill by having the solar company sell the energy produced by the panels to the customer at a fixed rate, usually lower than the local utility. The solar company owns and operates the solar panels, while the customer benefits from the cheaper energy costs. Savings range from an estimated 10 to 30%. It is true that solar energy costs money, but nothing's free. We have to be willing to make this sacrifice now in order to sacrifice less in the future. This can be made possible through third-party financing. Even though schools are entities without tax liability, and the school district would not get the benefits of tax returns like others for this renewable energy, the purchase is still economical due to the low cost of the energy and lack of installation fees. Solar energy will save us money in the long run. So, for me, all of my friends, and your children, why not invest in a better tomorrow? Thanks.
Thank you, Nina. Up next, I'm sorry I couldn't read your first name. I apologize. Satchel, thank you. Thank you. Satchel, followed by Sam Myers-Verhage. I'm sorry.
Hello, my name is Satchel Cochran, and I'm a junior at City High. We know that in the near future, climate change will be a much greater problem than it is right now. Everyone on Earth will need to permanently change their lifestyles, and therefore, we must not only take some minor steps to slow it down, but we must start to shape our society as if it were already here. A great beginning for that would be to implement an inclusive education curriculum to students. The two fastest growing jobs in the United States are photovoltaic installers and wind turbine service technicians. The world's growing demand for clean and efficient energy sources has increased exponentially due to the drop in technology costs, leading to this growth of renewable energy technicians. Photovoltaic installers are the people that assemble, install, and maintain solar panels, and wind turbine service technicians do the same for wind turbines. In 2018, 21 states experienced up to 20% growth in solar industry jobs, and 8 states saw more than 20% growth in solar and 20% growth in these jobs, according to the National Solar Foundation. This industry is on the rise, and we deserve to learn about the opportunities within high school. Thank you.
Thank you, Satchel. Appreciate it. Sam, followed by Victoria Weckman.
Hello, my name is Sam Myers-Verhage, and I'm also a junior at City High. There's an undeniable feel of partisan bias when we talk about climate change. Despite this, it has officially been confirmed by scientific consensus that humans are the primary source of climate change. This means it is officially a fact that humans are causing climate change. It is not a matter of opinion anymore. According to the results of an exclusive NPR poll, 9 in 10 Democrats, 2/3 of Republicans, 80% of parents believe that climate change should be taught in school. It also showed that 86% of teachers are in support of it being taught. Parents and teachers have shown the fact that this subject across all political boundaries. There is no political backing to not teach students about climate change and the effects it will have on our Earth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sam. Victoria, followed by Tim Shields.
Hello everyone, my name is Victoria Weckman and I'm a sophomore at City High School. The proposed addition to City High is absolutely stunning, and I understand that its purpose is to fix a multitude of historical challenges. However, I am vastly worried that the school district is choosing to spend $30 million on a building, playing into the trends of the last 100 years. By this I mean constructing a building which addresses the needs and wants of a small group and is built around the idea of making indoor lives easier and more architecturally appealing. Rather than using these funds to better City High School in an attempt to make it a more sustainable and environmentally acceptable place. In order to build the addition being proposed, hundreds of tons of materials need to be manufactured and transported, producing vast amounts of pollution, greenhouse gases, and utilizing significant amounts of energy. After construction, the addition will need to be heated, cooled, and illuminated, adding to the overall carbon footprint of City High, which, as much as I love, is an old and drafty building, and therefore is not the most efficient when it comes to temperature efficiency and sustainability. All of this will add up to millions of dollars spent and a significant amount of pollution generated for needs that may have been able to be filled in a more efficient manner. The decisions that I see being made are continuously worsening the climate and the environment which I will have to grow up in. I believe it is absolutely crucial to evaluate how we choose to spend future funds. I also believe that everyone in this room understands that human decisions have impacted our environment and brought us to this place of crisis. The climate emergency is not new to me. It is something which I have seen my entire life. However, the recent worsening of things is what's prompting the necessity for immediate action. In 2018, the United States spent more money repairing damage from weather-related events than any other year, while the second worst year was in 2017. California used to have fire seasons, but they have now declared that year-round they are vulnerable to fires. And very recently, golf ball-sized hail tore through Texas. So as the effects to climate change are everywhere, don't you think the school is the ideal place to acknowledge that we must change our relationship with our buildings and the environment? Why isn't our school reflecting the need for immediate action? Why are we spending millions of dollars on a project which will end in the worsening relationship with the environment around us, rather than working to better our current school? Will we let our world get to a place that it will cease to be a desirable area to live? There are a multitude of small changes which can be made to City High to make it a more environmentally sustainable and therefore comfortable place. This includes installing Energy Star rated windows, switching to renewable energy sources, replacing current lighting with LED lighting, adding additional insulation to reduce heating and cooling costs, and initiating a compost program in the cafeteria. I understand that it is easy to doubt the importance of these small changes, but I am reminded of one of the most pristine ecosystems left on Earth, the Grand Canyon. Something of its size and magnitude was created from just wind and water over time. Every small difference matters. We got ourselves into this environmental crisis one mistake at a time, and it will take fixing one building at a time to get us out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Victoria. Tim, followed by Ann Christiansen.
Evening. Tim Shields, 230 Scott Court, Iowa City here. I think I sent an email to all of you late last week about my company, so I decided to stop in and tell you a little bit about myself and introduce myself. So, again, Tim Shields from Shields Sewing Center. Looking to get the service contract for the schools and the sewing machines that are in the schools here. I know you've been dealing with another company for a number of years. The reason this is my first time coming up here is out of respect for that gentleman. I've known him for years and years and years, and I didn't want to step on his footsteps or step on his feet. But he is now retired, so I feel like this is my opportunity to come on in here and provide my service to the school district. Again, my business, Shield Sewing Center, was established in 1980 by my father in the Quad Cities. We moved here in 2001. I purchased it from him in 2005, and continue to oversee both locations throughout the week, months, years. We carry the Brothers sewing machines, which is what is in the schools right now. So I have vast knowledge of the machines and how to use them, and I can train all the staff if they need to. I also have a lot of schools in the Quad Cities: Pleasant Valley, Walcott, Rock Island, United Township. Kind of a quick story, Pleasant Valley Junior High just got new machines this last year. They were very new, different from what she had before, so I came and actually hung out all day in her class just to help her with the kids. And it was a lot of fun to interact, and I tell you, it's got to be tough on teachers to really have to. She had 28 kids trying to teach them sewing machines. So, I would be more than willing to do that with your staff as well, and to interact with the kids. Again, it's just more or less just want to introduce myself, and if you ever have any questions or anything, please don't hesitate to call. I have been in contact with Mr. Highland already, and hopefully we can establish a relationship and move forward. So, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Tim. Ann Christiansen, followed by Jeff Biggars.
I'm Ann Christensen. I live in the Longfellow neighborhood. I represent the 100 Grannies. We were founded 8 years ago on the premise that fossil fuels must be kept in the ground. In those 8 years, we've seen a lot of change and a lot of buying into the fact that our world is getting bad in terms of climate change. I'm wondering, I'm very pleased with these students who give their time and energy and effort to bring this to your attention. But I don't think it should be necessary for them to do that. You should be in the vanguard of this. I'm wondering how committed you personally, every one of you, are to focusing on climate change and doing something personal about it. I'm an 82-year-old grandmother. I've been arrested twice protesting fossil fuels. I've been to other protests: Texas, Nebraska, Manhattan, Washington, D.C., and on the banks of the Mississippi. Things are fast getting worse. The Arctic is melting faster than was ever anticipated. The Antarctic is also losing ice like crazy. Our oceans are being polluted. What are you doing? What are you doing in your homes? What are you doing yourselves? Why do these kids have to push on this? When I found out when Longfellow was rehabbed, and I thought that was great, I was appalled when I found out there was not any solar planned. Why not? What do you think is going to happen? You have got to think personally and as a board of what these kids are telling you, what is happening in our world. We can't wait. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Jeff, followed by Deb. I'm not sure. Scheiberman? Sorry, Deb S. Thank you, Jeff.
Hey, Janet, is it against the rules to give the kids a round of applause?
No, it is not.
I mean, I'm blown away. I'm going to be super quick because there's really nothing to say. But 9 weeks, these kids have missed their school and homework, and they have to do it when they have to make up PE. Think about it, 9 weeks, and if we ever talk about kids are apathetic again, let's think about these students. All of them who did amazing homework. Have we even done that homework on our own? About climate change, about solar, about sustainability. I heard so many topics tonight, I'm making notes. This is incredible. So this is the few things I want to say. I really, really, really appreciate in your work session you're going to deal with a climate resolution. And thanks so much for considering that you have several great options. But we have really a choice. Are we going to do something that's symbolic, as the kids have talked about, that says this is a problem and we have to look at it and we really need to do something about it, but we won't? Or will you actually pass a climate resolution like Madison, Wisconsin, and many other cities and school districts that says, hey, we have an emergency and we're going to hold our staff accountable for all operations, that we have to see everything through the framework of how our climate footprint and carbon footprint is happening. Be it our operations, our transportation, our energy efficiency, our electricity, our food services, our recycling program, our composting program, our local food program, our gardening program, our rewilding program, our tree planting program. All these have to be part of the resolution. And you specifically have to put in numbers that the staff have to come up with a plan to meet the IPCC requirements of cutting our emissions in half within a decade or so. We have to do that, otherwise it's not real. Secondly, how many amazing examples about solar. We don't need to give you the long list. Eagle Point Solar alone deals with 20 different school districts. So 4 years ago, we were told, can't do this because of Dillon's rule. We know that's not true. You simply have to look at the empirical evidence. It's been used as Dillon's ruse. We know simply we have to throw out this obstacle. It's not a serious argument to what we need to do. Please talk to the Quad Cities. Please talk to Burlington. East Dubuque, as we're speaking, is putting up solar panels, all through power purchase agreements. So it's totally realistic and feasible. Finally, I want to invite you to an amazing climate education program at Southeast Junior High. You know, you gave me a printout of all the climate programs we have in the entire district. This is kind of sparse, right? But the beauty is you have teachers, you have a new principal at Southeast. What a breath of fresh air. She's engaging. She opens up the door. She invites the parents. She's wonderful to talk to. And now you have a CASTLE program, which is literature, science, and American studies, who've done a several weeks long look at climate change and migration. They began with the Meskwaki, bringing in native speakers talking about food sovereignty and agriculture. They went out to the dump and they looked at the issue of zero waste. They went to the global farm and heard from Marcela Hurtado from Mexico, who talked about the incredible contributions of immigrants in Iowa City schools. That in fact, climate change is ethnic studies. It's an incredible way they're looking at it. And so on May 29th, they have invited you all, and I believe Rachel Pizarnik, who should really be one of our national examples of one of the top teachers, is asking you to come to an incredible showcase to show what they're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. Deb, and I so apologize for not getting your name, followed by Sheila. Thank you.
I will lean forward. Deb Schollerman, Iowa City resident, former teacher at Southeast. And I also want to commend and thank the students for the great job that you've done tonight. Amazing, they know a lot. The bad news about global warming and climate change is that it's happening faster than many thought. The good news is we know what to do. We just need to do it, and the sooner we begin, the better. This book, Drawdown, which was written in 2017, is the most comprehensive plan ever proposed to reverse global warming. There are 80 solutions in this book, plus 20 more that are still under study, ranked in order based on the total amount of greenhouse gases they can potentially avoid or remove from the atmosphere. Rooftop solar is number 10, food waste is number 3, electric vehicles are number 26. We know solar arrays generate electricity without emitting greenhouse gases or air pollutions. The cost of solar continues to decline and its growth continues worldwide. Upfront costs are often raised as a constraint, but there are ways to reduce the initial investment. My husband and I have solar panels in our home. Our electric bill is much lower now. We were able to take advantage of tax credits to reduce installation costs. I'm a member of the Unitarian Universalist Society, where we installed 429 solar panels in 2017. The church itself could not take advantage of the solar tax credit, so a group of us, member investors, set up a PPA agreement with the church. The member investors purchased and installed the solar array through Eagle Point Solar. We received the tax credit, and now we sell the electricity to the church at a reduced rate. Together, we're keeping a lot of greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere. It's a win-win situation. I asked the school board to create a task force to explore ways to reduce its carbon footprint, which would likely include adding solar arrays to some or all of the school buildings. It will take all of us in our community, our country, and the world to each do what we can now to reverse global warming. What will the Iowa City Community School District do? We owe it to our children and our grandchildren to do what we can and to start now. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Sheila, followed by Ellen Sweet. Hi there.
Hello, my name is Sheila Hamel, and I am here to support Nina, Lillian, Esty, Brandon, Massimo, Alex, Diego, Yardley, Satchel, Samuel, and Victoria. I think that they did an outstanding job in their presentation tonight, and there's not a thing that I could add to what they had to say. I think that there are action items that we can absolutely take out of the information that they presented, out of the information that Jeff and Deb presented, and that we can go forward and we can do something and we can make a change. And we're here too. This isn't just about you doing something. This is about us doing something, because we are all in this together. And I think we are all ready to join you to help out to make this change. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Ellen?
My name is Ellen Sweet, and I am also, along with Jenny Mettenmeyer, on the Playground Committee. Now, I understand Jenny sent you some comments about the plans that are on the agenda tonight. I ask you to take those very seriously. I trust her analysis. Please do not approve the plans for the playground equipment that are on the agenda tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. That concludes community comment. Thank you all for coming tonight and sharing your thoughts. Appreciate it very much. We'll move into our agenda approval. Is there a motion to approve our agenda this evening?
So moved.
Second. I'm ready to vote. Online voting is open.
Hasn't come up.
Lori's the only one I got a response
Yeah.
from.
Do we need to re-log in, do you think?
might be, because it's that idle. I can do a call. Ressler,
Yay.
Godwin,
Yay.
Clausen,
Yay.
Malone,
Oh, yay. Yes.
Eyestone,
Yay.
Hemingway. Motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. I'm logging back into board docs, but I believe up next is our consent agenda, our massive consent agenda. First, Phil, do you want to give an update on bills I reviewed, and I think Paul did as well?
Yeah, we had $8.2 million worth of spending. The largest was in our GO bond spending. We had $6.3 million there. In the regular spending, we had, I don't know if the students are not here anymore, but maybe it's, we had $33,000 worth of diesel fuel, kind of along with what they're talking about. There was spending for our Terracon playground inspection, and like I say, I still have concerns with that. Also, some more spending we had at our last review, $12,000 worth of spending on Unit 57, our garbage truck, and we had another $2,200 on it, which is we should get out of the garbage business, leave it to the city. But the questions that I had were answered, and everything looks in order.
Any comments from you, Phil, in your review, or Phil, Paul? The only question I had was around the expenditures around the Dell laptops, and in terms of just how frequently the district refreshes laptops, and we're on a 4-year refresh cycle, which seems reasonable, and so I appreciated the feedback on that. Items to pull from consent.
Yeah, I would like to pull 20, 21, 22, 24, 27, 28, 29, and 31.
Okay, any others from other board members?
Say those again, Phil.
20, which is Christine Grant Playground, 21, Kirkwood Elementary Module, 22, Kirkwood Elementary Module, 24, Grantwood Elementary Module, 27, Playground Equipment Lincoln, 28, Appendix 9, 29, Iowa Net Academy, and 31, Champions Integrated Agreement.
Any others? Is there a motion to approve a consent agenda minus items 20, 21, 22, 24, 27, 28, 29, and 31?
So moved.
Second.
Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. First up, Christine Grant Elementary Playground Equipment.
Yes, and I am on the playground committee as well, and I see Ben's here, so we can have that. On the Christine Grant, we had two vendors, Boland, which is the Miracle proposal, the first one, and then the second one in the packet is the National. Having learned what we've learned with our playground committee thus far, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of many on the committee is that the National proposal is much better. We're working on this, and I don't believe that, and Ben, you can correct me if I'm wrong, has Tony or Ingrid or Jennifer looked at either one of those layouts?
Well, first of all, they're not required to, but I'll let Ben address that.
I understand, but we have paid experts helping us with our inclusive
I would
play.
agree with you, they're working on the inclusive elements in the playground surfacing, so beyond that, Ben's free to answer the question.
Yeah, so we haven't got any sort of direction from the consultants, and we haven't run that through the playground committee. But I have met with Jennifer Skulski, Tony McCusack, and Ingrid, and discussed different concepts that we can expect to kind of roll out with their feedback. And so we tried to incorporate as many of those different concepts into the playgrounds as possible. Beyond that, I'd like King kind of talk about, some of those other elements that are going on outside the actual playground equipment that kind of lend themselves to universal design and what Ingrid and Tony are suggesting.
Well, and my concern is that we're in the same time crunch, and I'm afraid we're going to make the same mistakes we've made at other places, and we're already under a DOJ investigation, and who knows whether that will ever materialize or anything. But I'm concerned that we're in the position to make the same mistakes if we don't at least try and learn from what our past mistakes have been. So I would urge that we reject this and accept the national playground proposal instead.
I would just clarify, and Phil is on the committee, and he's entitled, obviously, as a board member, as a committee member, to his opinion. I would never say that he isn't, but just to clarify for the board, the Playground Committee has not taken these up, and while there might be a variety of opinions from members of the Playground Committee, the Playground Committee is not taking a position as the committee one way or the other on one of the proposals. That's not within the scope of what the Playground Committee is currently set up to do. The Playground Committee is currently set up to look at what our procedures are and to make suggestions for overall procedures as we move forward to consider playgrounds as we work through them on a cycle basis. And so to say that the Playground Committee has a view one way or the other, as the chair of that committee, that there's not been any recommendation from the committee in that regard.
So,
No, and you're absolutely right. And I did not mean to infer. I just said that many on the committee, I believe, have the same net.
So, thanks for clarifying the role of the Playground Committee. I'm just going to confess a little bit of frustration, maybe just because it seems like kind of what Phil said a minute ago. We get to this point where we get playground proposals in front of us. We've got bids. We go through a competitive bid process. We have a committee from the school that has parents and PTO members and principals looking at the proposals, coming up with a recommendation, and then we say, oh, that's not what we want. The members of a committee, or it's not meeting the proper design. It's pretty frustrating to get to this point, to have something that we're supposed to vote on and have this kind of disagreement about what it is we should be doing. So my question is, I had thought the Playground Committee was to be putting forward recommendations for what our playground should incorporate, like design principles and criteria and things that we should be following as we review new playground proposals. Have we done that? And have those criteria been used through this process for grant and the other ones that we've pulled tonight around, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on them, Lincoln, thank you. I mean, has the committee done their job to provide the proper
We're in the
feedback?
process working with both of the national consultants that have been referenced for the different areas that they're providing a report on. No, the work of the committee is not finished, and we're scheduled to get another set of reports beginning of June, and the work of the committee is hopefully to have those new guidelines in place to help provide guidance to the school-based committees as we enter the next round of sessions in the fall. But even if those were in place, they would help provide guidance. But the role of the committee has not been established to override that committee that's at the site base.
Fair enough, but we're missing the input from the committee to say, here are the guiding principles, the criteria, the factors that the various school-based committees should be following. I think that's what I'm frustrated by right now, because the committee hasn't provided that, and here we are, another round of proposals, that we've got this sort of disagreement on what we should or should not do.
Well, I don't think I don't want to speak out of turn, because my part is just the overall committee that's working on those guidelines, that have been working on them, and it takes time to do that work, and some of these schedules aren't in line with that. But I'd have to defer to Ken or to Dwayne and Ben in terms of what the consensus was from the group on these playgrounds. So, Dwayne?
I would like to add some comments and my observations, because this young man next to me works for me. And I don't know of anybody in the district that's more knowledgeable of playgrounds, playground equipments the desires of the committee. He's been involved in all that. He's been involved with both consultants that we've hired. He's worked with them. He answers their phone calls. He knows what they're looking for. Having said that, I also know that he's been very diligent in bringing in site teams, principals, have a lot of say in this. They discuss what's best for their particular site. It is frustrating to have one or two people disagree without really having been involved in the process at the local school level. If they went to all those meetings and they had input into the playground and disagreed, so be it. I can appreciate that.
But I think the rub is there's a playground committee that was charged to do some work and present some recommendations. That work of the committee's not finished, therefore, that was not in front
Right.
of the school-based
But
committees.
having said that, and they are charged with two things. One is to help us with surfacing, which we've done a lot of different things with, and with how to include inclusive or universal type play elements, more of them in our playground structures, okay? We all know it's impossible to be 100% inclusive. We cannot have every type of surface on every playground, but we're doing the best we can. We have to move these projects forward so kids have playgrounds this fall. And so we keep getting these roadblocks. We feel the same frustration. But I really think that the committees and the principals and the site team and Ben Grimm have done a wonderful job. And I think before you make a decision, you should hear from Ken
Yeah.
and from Ann and from Julie. I don't know who else is here tonight, but you need to hear from these principals and let them tell you about the really exhaustive process they went through before you just take the word of one or two people.
No, and again, I'm not trying to take the word of one or two people. I'm expressing I wish the playground committee had finished their work before we had gone into these that's the point that I was trying to make. I think we're out of sync from a process standpoint. So I do want to hear from.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we can come back and we can report on that work. And it was something that got started last summer, and then we've talked about how some of the pieces didn't fall into place immediately, and so just to give time and things to line up. You're right.
I mean,
The work just didn't get done, and so I understand that frustration, but we want to do it right, and we're trying to work with the consultants on their piece. So I do apologize to the board that we don't have that where it is, but we are on schedule to have it completed in time for the next cycle. I know that doesn't solve tonight's conversation, but when we focus that broader conversation on the committees, we can kind of go through some of the backstory there as well.
Maybe we should do this in the order they've been pulled, and we'll start with Ken
yeah.
Turnus, if you don't mind.
Well, and just to say, just so we cover it and we don't have to come back with questions, it is frustrating to be in this position where we feel forced to make a decision, and that means it's not a decision. So what you come to us is either you decide this or children won't have a place to play. I mean, that's what it sounds like from the board perspective. And I appreciate the work everybody has done. I do. So I guess what I want to hear is if it's not 90% accessible or inclusive, right, is it 50%? Can you tell me how a kid in a wheelchair can partake in 50% of these activities, how a kid with sensory issues can partake in whatever percentage? Because I remember last year with the Longfellow thing, I believe it was very clear, and admittedly, I'm somebody who's not involved in the committee, but I happen to be a board member. And so I think the will of the board leaned very heavily toward inclusivity. And so that's what I have to hear is, I leave it up to schools and principals and parents to totally decide how their playgrounds look, what equipment they want to buy, except when it comes to inclusivity, because I can't guarantee that all of the school-based teams have that at the core, and it has to be. Because if we leave one kid out of recess.
I totally appreciate your comments. I think we took them to heart. I don't think that these site teams worked in a vacuum at all, but short of a policy that's been pushed forward by the Playground Committee, I think these three teams did a remarkable job. And there was questions in the emails that were inaccurate. There's comments that were made. There is a multi-level playground at Minh that's wheelchair accessible. We're using the terrain at Lincoln, and it's accessible on all levels. And I think you need to let these principals tell you what they've done. And I think you'll be hopefully pleasantly surprised that they have taken to heart all the things that the committee is going to put forward. We didn't just go out willy-nilly and pick a playground and say, oh, that's the best one. They really did have the discussion. So
I want to give the benefit of the doubt. I'm just telling you what it feels like from when you hear from people who are, enmeshed in inclusivity and just our own personal experience.
There are
So
some
that's-
with an agenda that want to see it 100%. It's never going to get there, but we're doing our best, and we're doing it within the budgets that we can live with. So I'd like for you to hear from these three. You can come, we'll
Yeah.
come back to you, Ben. Ben?
Well, good evening, everyone. Let's see if I can follow all that up. So I'm going to stick with factual items here. I had no opinion, of course, throughout the process, but I felt like my role was bring my 20 years of expertise, just really guiding the group. Ben was a huge component in keeping our grant group together, keep us going in the right direction, sharing a lot about resources that are available. But there is quite a few other people as well. It was mentioned earlier about having parents represented. Yep, of course, and that's probably typical across all the schools. We had multiple parents, parents/staff, myself, Ben, of course, multiple meeting dates. We had a very productive, cohesive group. We tended to move in, somehow we were moving in the same direction quite often. It felt pretty good. As you can imagine, communications via email, having a Google Team Drive set up. We started off, we had wish lists. So Ben had provided multiple different catalogs online that we could go through, select things that each of us, kind of a brainstorming session in a sense. A lot of that was done electronically. The wish lists were posted on the Team Drive, shared out, multiple meetings, notes kept on the meetings. Again, links to resources as they came up were put into that drive and accessed by all team members. And it wasn't just the words, but the pictures, schematics, various pieces of equipment. There was different collaborators also outside of the team. Even sitting down with Lisa Glenn one afternoon and Megan Clark, our assistant special ed director, Ben and I had a good conversation about accessibility, being inclusive on a playground. Is it always about the structure? That's important, but what else can we include? How do we get student interest included? Ann Griffin, might not be a name you know. She's with Grantwood AEA. Ann is a consultant for adaptive physical education. And Ann said she's the only person who does it in the entire state, which was kind of nice to have some time to spend with Ann. Adaptive PE, we're making a lot of connections from adaptive PE to what the potential out on the playground. For instance, I didn't realize, and I think a lot of our PE instructors weren't aware, that there is now relatively new a checkout system for adaptive materials. It's a pretty extensive list of items that you can find and check out for a 3-week period. Part of our thinking was if we could actually get some of those items and check them out a few at a time, we could trial them out. If it seems like it's a good match, it's something that we could look at perhaps getting some PTO funding, maybe some building budget, and have in place for our playground. Examples, there's a really neat video online that Ann puts on. It's almost like a show where here are various nets, basketballs, baskets, all different ways that you can be inclusive to all walks of life on a playground. Sensory items, bowling pins, a bouncy ball that's called a peanut. Basically, it's like this tall, bouncy ball that you don't necessarily have to be entirely mobile to access. So that was kind of neat. Then with our plan, talking to a couple of our parents who do have some wheelchair-dependent kids and getting their opinions as well. Brought it up at last month's PTO, some of our ideas, showed them our plans a week ago this past Monday. So we had an extensive meeting, but folks stayed after and reviewed our plans. The input was very good. Everyone seemed to enjoy the plans we had came up with. We went with the ramp approach, so with our pre-K, K, and our first through third, including the ramps. And part of the thinking was just, we look at different elements of inclusive play and the social and the communication piece. For us, knowing we had some students coming up, we just want to make sure to be able to access those areas where their friends might be. Looking ahead to the coming year, there's a lot of thoughts that we have that are percolating on how we can add to the playgrounds that are in place, the structures that we're looking at, trying to get student input. Our 4th, 5th, and 6th doesn't have everything that we'd like it to, but I think with working with our PTO, we'll be able to get some funds raised and then have some options for our students to vote on that we know we can live with too. I tried to do that in a nutshell, sorry.
So to answer JP's question, 50% accessible, 90%, 80%? I mean, I
Well, with
appreciate the
the-
process and the,
Oh, sure.
and the contributions from all the different folks that you mentioned,
Mhm.
Ken. So just trying to gauge from JP's question.
Well, and it probably depends on the individual student as to what that particular need or, how we can perhaps level the playing field in a sense. If it's, I mentioned wheelchair, that would just be one particular individual or person who may need some specific access. With the ramps, in theory, you can get up nearly to the top of the structure. But I know some folks with a transfer station that would do the job as well, that they'd be able to transfer from, in this instance, I'm talking about a wheelchair, but be able to access the play structure.
Maybe it'd be appropriate to let Ben say how many elements are on this plan.
Oh, sure.
So like Ken said, it kind of depends on the individual disability. If you're talking about ramp access, they can access, give or take, right around 50% of the components via ramp in a wheelchair without exiting that wheelchair. The rest of the structure, if the student's able to exit or be assisted by a paraeducator, they'd be able to access the rest of that. So depending on how you look at the disabilities, it kind of determines what the accessibility is.
Okay, and I might add that there is an item in Appendix 9 that relates to the main playground, and I assume that's one of the reasons it might have been pulled. So that's why I asked Julie to be here as well. So we'll let Ann speak to her process, and then we'll hand it off to Julie.
Well, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to talk about Lincoln's Playground. We met as a team, a committee. We had 5 meetings, and I think we're in a great position at Lincoln because ours is a phased in. So we are looking at a 10-year plan. So in 5 years, we'll replace an older structure that is going to remain on our playground. And then also we have the ability to landscape our playground, which is right now on a hill, to make it so it's even more accessible to everyone to be able to go to the top of the playground, get to the old structure up there, but then also form kind of a racetrack around, off the hard surface around. And then if you just look at the drawing for the base structure, you wouldn't understand how you can access right off of there. But there's going to be like a crow's nest that kind of comes off of that racetrack, positioned just so that a person can come up, either wheeled or walk off of that racetrack that comes around right onto there, which makes this whole structure quite accessible. And I would say I've been fortunate to be on the district playground committee with Ben, and he brought in a lot of information that I'm sure he brought in on the other 3. But our committee, we had access to the Power of Play. It's a research summary on play and learning that all of our committee members read, because our #1 purpose and role of our committee was to utilize universal design and ADA compliance so that all the children, including adults, elderly, grandparents, to anyone, can interact on all the features. And we spent a lot of time looking at what it means to interact on the features, beyond the features, to be able to talk to other people, to be able to see and access, and then think about building onto the future structures for this. Well, we have 11 components on the national playground structure that was selected by the students. Overwhelmingly, they voted for that. And there's the opportunity for 11 components of play on that structure, which will mesh nicely in 5 years when we move to adding a rope structure, I think is kind of the direction our committee is looking at. And we kind of wrestled with rope structure now versus post and platform, and based on the landscape design that came back, this meets our criteria and within our budget. And so I was really pleased about that. But yeah, so everyone had say in it. I feel like we have a really good plan going ahead, and I think it based on the structure and the landscape, you put it all together, I think we have the best case product right here that we're bringing to you. So at the percent of accessibility, I would have to defer to Ben on that, because I don't have that.
So Lincoln's a little bit different because it's more of a lateral design, but it does have about 50% ramp coverage onto the primary structure. If you look at your illustration, we did identify a non-compliance in ADA. They have to sub out an actual platform that would allow access through the rest of the structure. The contractor is going to sub that out with no extra charge to us. Ann talked a little bit about the running path along the sidewalk. We're also putting in an ADA access up to the upper structure and the green space up above. We've also brought in other departments in this process to try to incorporate all those things beyond what grounds controls. So we've actually worked with the painting department, the carpentry department to work on stencils that would put checkers and tic-tac-toe chess on the picnic tables. We're also doing the running path. We're also doing what we're calling a action path where so far through the running path they'll say skip and then they'll say jump and then they'll say hop and then sprint to create an interactive path through there. We also incorporated new hard surface games for you would call universal designs, games where students can mimic each other or interact with each other, as well as trying to take as many of the current hard surface games and find multi-use forms. So one day it's a kickball court, the next day it's an action path. And all those elements would kind of come together to create that universal design that everybody's after. While I'm on the subject, what most people don't realize is when you move from a standard structure like we've had in the past and you move to a universal design, you're not going to see this profound change in what the structure actually looks like. It look very similar. It's all about the diversity that happens within that structure. So at first glance, these look like the exact same structures. But once you put them together with the entire playground, that's where you get that universal design that happens. So we paid a lot of attention to what was going on other structures and how all the structures interacted to each other to make sure that we didn't have, say, tic-tac-toe on 3 different structures. We had tic-tac-toe on one, we had a music one on one, we had a sensory one for autistic kids. So if you dig deeper into the actual structures themselves, that's where you're going to actually see the universal design.
So I would like to add one other feature that we haven't talked about, but when we do the site planning, we also have site access to the actual playground area. And so we ensure that all those meet ADA code and that every one of those playgrounds is accessible from the building. You know, it's one thing to talk about inclusivity and universal design at the playground structure, but we're also making sure that you can get to the site and that you can get onto the site. And you might remember last year we talked about zero entry, where we created that wading pool effect, where the concrete slopes and that wood fiber is on top. So even if it settles a little, you can still run right down onto it. So those are the kind of things that we do on the site, in addition to what you're hearing about the playground structures. But I would like you to listen to Julie as well, and she can talk about her process.
Assuming this is, Phil, the reason for pulling Appendix 9 was the man?
Yes, but, you know, one of the reasons I wanted FFA is because we'd have some people that would understand parliamentary procedures. We're talking about item 20, and we're jumping, we went to Lincoln, and now we're going to Appendix 9. If we want to group them all in, that's fine. Let's just have that part as part of the discussion, but we started off with 20, and I had a motion on the floor before it got taken off.
Sorry, what was the motion?
The motion was to accept the national proposal instead of the miracle.
Yeah, it wasn't seconded.
Okay,
so,
you're fine. That should have been
and I
stated,
think there
and then
was,
we go on.
Yep, and I do think there was sorry that I did not make that explicit, but there was an idea that this is a playground discussion. We wanted to have the experts and the folks that have been part of the process kind of go through these together. So let's just agree. We're going to talk about all 3 of these and have the conversation on playground accessibility. And I just want to make sure that for Appendix 9, Phil, was this the only reason it was pulled, or did you have other? Okay.
No.
So let's continue. Julie, thank you, to talk about what's going on at Mann. And then we won't be able to vote on the 28, the Appendix 9, because there's other matters that we need to discuss there, but we can vote on 20 and 27 together. Please.
Well, just do them in order, it's fine.
Do them in order? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, good evening. First of all, I just want to publicly say a thank you to Ben, because I don't know if there's anyone more knowledgeable or more helpful in the state, I don't know, maybe the country, that knows his stuff. And I know that because when we would accidentally try and suggest something, he would say, nope, that's not going to meet the safety requirements, or he would say, nope, that's not going to meet inclusivity. So I just really appreciate him leading that process and leading us. Our process was very similar to what the other schools have gone through. I would guess our playground is probably one of the smallest playgrounds in the state. One of the first discussions we had to make as a committee is what kind of surface did we want? And we decided we wanted the solid rubber, well, it's not solid, but the rubber soft fall surface, so we wouldn't be dealing with wood chips. And the reason we wanted that was because we were very adamant that we wanted it to be inclusive to all students. What that did, because that surface is actually more expensive than structures, is it took our playground budget for anything besides the surface to $85,000. I'm pretty sure that's the smallest playground budget in the state also, to put in a whole new playground. But we really looked at things. If you look at our drawings, I'm really excited because on our main structure, what you can do is you can enter to that structure from the top level. So you can actually go down a ramp to get to the bottom of the playground, but you can also go directly onto the structure from the top level. And once you get to the top, to the structure, the whole thing is one surface. And if you're a child with a walker or a wheelchair, you can go anywhere on that structure without encountering a step that's going to prevent you from going somewhere. So I'm thrilled with that. There was also a question about the merry-go-round spinner we selected, and that's a great example of where Ben led us, because we wanted one where people faced inwards and people could push, because we thought you could go really fast on that and that would be fun. And he said, well, I want you to look at this one, because this one makes for an easier transfer if you have a child in a wheelchair. And so the spinner we have is a spinner where kids face outward, and you can't tell it very well on the picture, but the seats are differentiated. So for example, if there's a child that can't support themselves very well, you can transfer them, which is a much easier transfer to an outward facing seat than having to get into the middle of the merry-go-round, and it sort of sits like a well so that the sides come up and support them, kind of like the swings that we have. So we're really excited about that, and I thank Ben for saying, no, we don't want that merry-go-round, we want this one. Another issue was raised where people that have sensory issues and children that maybe the craziness of recess is overwhelming and are there quiet spaces, and we've really worked hard on that, both at our old man and on our new man. We've made sure we have benches and picnic tables because we have a lot of kids who choose to play checkers or chess or trade cards or read or draw during recess, and we wanted to make sure we kept those spaces for them. We also have a great retaining wall that we're going to use as an outdoor chalkboard with colored chalk so that kids who want to write on that can. Ben talked a little bit about the things that will be templated on and the issues. The other thing that we're very fortunate about is we have that great relationship with Iowa City, and we sit right next to Market Square Park. So in addition to our quiet spaces, kids love to go there and play in the sandbox. They have that beautiful gazebo. Kids love to go and talk and hang out in the gazebo. And there's also beautiful trees, and it's really fun to come to recess, and it kind of makes you think you're in yonder years because you'll see kids actually sitting under the tree playing imaginative play with things under the tree. So I feel really comfortable about the quiet spaces that we've added to the playground, that we've got a thing that kids can be active and they can also go away to be quiet. We also, from the same way, have green space, a lot of green space, thanks to that park. And then I guess the last thing I would end up saying is that, you know, the most important thing if you want to ensure that you have inclusive playgrounds, it's not the surface, it's not the structure, it's not any of the toys. The most important thing to make sure you have an inclusive playground is that you have kids and staff who have the attitude that they're determined that no one is going to be left out at their school. And I think that we all work really hard. I mean, speaking for Man, I know we do, that is what our children are taught. And that, I think, is the critical piece that we don't want to leave out. Because you can have all the fun equipment you want to have that can be accessed by anybody, but if you don't have kids who value playing with all other kids, it's not much fun to play on something by yourself. And if you've got kids that value all other children and value diversity and value children with differences, then it doesn't matter what your structure is. I wish you could come to Hoover now and see, we have this boy who, thank goodness, is temporarily in a wheelchair, and his classmates have found more games to play on that playground than you would imagine, because they were determined they're not going to leave him out at recess. And he can't access the equipment, but he's having as much fun out there as anybody. So I just wanted to say that part, because to me, that's the heart of the matter when we talk about inclusivity. It's how we treat each other. So thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Anything else, Ben or Dwayne? Okay, so item 20. Is there a motion to approve item 20?
So moved.
Second.
Any further conversation?
I'm just going to make one comment on this very specific one. And the one thing I'm looking at, and it's hard for me to look at schematics and figure out really what's going on, but I believe it's the A design that we're voting on. I mean, in the top corner of it, it talks about having 15 elevated play activities, and 15 of those 15 are accessible by ramp, is what it says right on there, like every single one. And if you look at some of the other ones, including the national one, it's far less that is accessible. Either it has to be more transfer and less ramp, or less things are accessible. And just looking at those numbers, again, it's hard for me to tell what it really looks like, but looking at those numbers, it seems like the best option actually is the one that's up for approval. So I'll be voting in favor of it.
I have a quick question about the surfacing materials on the Grant and the Lincoln playgrounds. So as we've talked about in the past, if the district has additional funds available for playground equipment and surfaces, can we easily, without spending a lot of money, remove this and replace with a different surface?
Good answer.
Yes, yeah, that's the easy answer. We actually took that into consideration. Now, the thing to consider, or that we also took into consideration with Grant, is how much more equipment we're going to have to add in the future. So one of the things the consultants are working on is giving us objectives to work towards to be more inclusive, right? So these milestones to actually reach. And so in this first phase, we're trying to get the base structure out there, and then we took the concrete pads, and the way they're designed, there's actually a seam between what's horizontal and what's diagonal, to where we can cut that, strip that out, go in and put in whatever surface that we want in the future.
So we'll have
after we do those
total
additions.
flexibility to choose whatever surface we want? How it's being put in?
Yeah, basically, we would favor ones that didn't need concrete underneath the playground, so we'd favor the ones that had crumb rubber and aggregate underneath, or a turf type one that we saw at Longfellow, versus a tile system, which you normally go to concrete. So we would have to favor a type.
Do we have a sense from the Longfellow experiment, so to speak, as to what our preferred surface would be going forward?
So it's going to depend on the site and the situations. If we were going to go with the synthetic surface, we'd prefer poured in place at this point over the turf and the tile system. The tile system, kids can rip that up. It also creates gaps in there where you can get weeds, and that doesn't fit well with our IPM. And then the synthetic turf, actually the kids pull the synthetic turf out. And so we worry that it may not be able to reach the end of its life cycle, and that would not be something that would be warranted by the company.
I think I would agree with Ben. We've had some issues with the turf at Longfellow, and that's probably the one we wouldn't do again unless it was required somewhere. But I think the surprising thing to me is the preliminary results we're getting back to, which you'll hear once you get your committee report, is that engineered wood fiber is a pretty desirable surface, that it actually performs better than you may suspect. And you will see that, and we're hearing that from one of our consultants right now, actually both of them, that it's not a bad surface. but having said that, you'll get it soon.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second for item 20. Kim, I think we're ready to vote.
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with Directors Rotland, Ressler, Godwin, Clausen, Malone, and Eystone voting yea, and Director Hemingway voting nay.
And since we did have the detailed discussion around Lincoln, and it's a standalone consent item, is there a motion to approve item 27, the Lincoln Elementary Playground?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Kim, we're ready to vote.
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with Directors Rotland, Ressler, Godwin, Clausen, Malone, and Eystone voting yea, and Director Hemingway voting nay.
I don't quite know the procedure on consent number 28 with Appendix 9, since there's multiple items in that. I'm looking for clear.
I think we should go back.
Just go back to number
Just go back to 21, and we'll get to 28 and deal with it. Okay, good. So hang on to man. 21, Kirkwood Elementary Modular Unit Project.
Yes, can we get explanation on why this is necessary, Dwayne?
Well, the building's entirely occupied. Matter of fact, of all the buildings in the district, I can't think of one that has more small programs and special support programs in the building. They're in every closet, nook and cranny. They're in storerooms. I mean, it's been like that for a number of years. So in order to reconstruct it, the project itself includes a 4-classroom addition and a gymnasium addition. And that's to help with the crowding in the building, because some of the interior spaces are being converted. There is 2 classrooms being converted into a preschool room as part of the project as well. And it's just virtually impossible to do all that during summer construction period, so we need to remove students safely, particularly at the elementary school level. And Anita and I have been working on the schedule, and what we've decided to do is to move the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders out into the modular units. We're also moving a singular modular, that's item number 22, to the site from Garner to house the music program to help alleviate the noise. So they're getting a new music room, which they'll ultimately move to. So that's how we're going to use those modulars, and we need it in order to get the project done. The contractors and the architects are telling me they may need to December to finish it, even with the modulars. And I've been working on a plan the last 2 days where they should be able to finish it next fall, the fall of 2020, so they don't have to stay there beyond 1 school year. So I feel pretty comfortable with the plan. I'm going to present it to them later in the week, but that's what they're used for.
So he had a question from the community about why there was a change from the 6-plex to the multiple duplexes. Could you
Yes.
just address that for
Yeah.
the community?
Sure. When we approved the accelerated plan a year or so ago, I guess, it's kind of a blur now, the plan did call for the 6-plex to be moved from Lucas to Kirkwood. And originally it was Shimmick, and then Shimmick and Kirkwood got flipped in the schedule, but I digress. So it was supposed to go to Kirkwood, and then in this past several months, it was determined that the Roosevelt facility would be shut down, and that we needed a home for homeschool. And the 6-plex seemed to fit that purpose better, and therefore we'd hoped to move that to Shimmick for that purpose, and that left us with no other options but to use existing duplexes at Kirkwood.
Familiarize me on when the board voted to close Roosevelt. When did we have a vote on that?
Well, I'll defer to the superintendent.
Board didn't vote to close Roosevelt.
The board didn't vote to close Roosevelt. As we looked at programs at Roosevelt, and as we looked at the expansion at Tate and to better serve the needs of the students there, the plan was to move the programs that were at Roosevelt out and into the new expanded Tate High School as we go through the renovations there. Homeschool assistance program, if many of you recall, used to be housed in a single trailer unit behind Northwest. We looked for more space for them. We were able to find some space for them at Roosevelt. Part of our ongoing dialogue with them was finding them a permanent home. And also part of that dialogue was a request from their part that they not be in a school, but be proximate to a school. And so in order to try to meet all of those needs, and looking at things like dual enrollment for students that are in homeschool and like to participate in things like art and music in our elementary curriculum, we looked for a campus that would be able to house one of our multiplexes. The determination was made that Shimmick would be best suited for that, both in terms of the space and in terms of being able to add the students into their dual enrollment classes there as an option for them. And so that was the conversation that took place with the homeschool parents starting last fall about moving their program to a more permanent setting that better accommodated their academic needs.
So we've moved the programming out of it, but we've made no decision on closing the building.
No, we haven't.
So it'd be inappropriate to refer to it as such.
Technically, the school board voted in 2012 to close that school. You've just used it for programming.
That's correct.
And also, the community member had alluded to, that with the sixplex change, there would not be bathrooms there. So you answered that, provided that answer for me on email, but for the community, could you address that as well?
That was, one of our objectives was to put it as close to the building as possible so that students would have a short trip, particularly in the winter or in inclement months, to get into the building. And they're all very close to the front entrance to the building. And we put the older students out there for a reason. So we're hopeful that they're close enough to the front door that it won't be an issue. The real issue with having students in modulars is security and going back and forth between the buildings and being supervised by staff so they can get through the secured entrance. And I think Anita has those details worked out.
Thank you.
Any other comments on item 21? Is there a motion to approve?
I'd just make a clarification. You could go ahead and do 21 and 22 at the same time.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
I move
items 21
that
and
we
22?
approve 21 and 22.
Second.
Any further conversation? Hearing none. Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with Directors Rotland, Ressler, Godwin, Clausen, Malone, and Eystone voting yea, and Director Hemingway voting nay.
Number 24, Grantwood Elementary Modular Unit Project.
Yes, if we can have a description on why this is necessary.
Well, currently it would. They do have one duplex unit sitting there that they're using for, I believe, their music program and ELL. And for the same reasons at Kirkwood, we need to move some of the students out of the building so we can phase through it. That project is getting an art room and music room addition, and then interior renovations. And there's just not enough empty space in the building, so a lot of the heavy mechanical work in the corridors is done in the summer, but in the classrooms it has to be done during the school year, just not enough time otherwise. And we felt like we needed those units. So those are two units that are currently sitting at Alexander. One of them was moved from Wood 2 years ago to Alexander, and now we're going to move it back. So anyway, that's the plan, is to move from Alexander to Wood. And fortunately at Wood, all the foundations are still in place. We didn't remove them. We left them in the ground, so anticipating that we may have to phase through the building someday. So they'll go right back on the existing foundations.
The only recommendation I might be is just to leave the wheels on, since we seem to be going back and forth with that temporary. Maybe we just build a carriage for it.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Well, we seem to be moving one building quite often. Putting it on wheels might be cheaper.
Could be. There are actually wheels under some of them. We take the axles off when we move them. hopefully in 2 years, you're going to have a fire sale. We're going to be selling a lot of these duplex units.
Any further comments on item 24? Is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve item 24.
Second.
Any further comment? Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open.
Close it. No, yeah, see it.
Are you sure?
It says open. Okay.
Still nothing?
Nothing.
Rutland,
Yay.
Wrestler,
Yay.
Godwin,
Yay.
Clausen,
Yay.
Malone,
Yay.
Eystone,
Yay.
Hemingway.
Nay.
Motion carries with Directors Rutland, Wrestler, Godwin, Clausen, Malone, and Eystone voting yea, and Director Hemingway voting nay.
Item 28, I think we've covered the man question. Phil, what else under Appendix
Shimmick.
9?
Can you discuss the Shimmick project?
At Shimmick, it's been characterized, well, it's two things, actually. There's two parts to it. One is obviously the sixplex we just talked about and setting that up for homeschool use. And that would be east of the, what I call the east staff parking lot in the far southeast corner of the property. And the other part of the project is hard surface, and it's a hard surface playground. It's not a parking lot, but it serves two purposes. There's a play area there, and there's also a fire lane for the fire trucks. The fire department's requiring that we have access to the back of the building, which we don't have good access at that particular site. So if you look at the drawing, and I brought it with me if you're interested, but there's two pieces to that asphalt. So it can be used as a parking area for overflow events. The drawings, the engineering drawings actually had lines drawn like it was a parking lot. That was just to demonstrate to us how many park stalls you could actually, or cars you could park on that space. It's not really designed to be a parking lot, it's a play area. And the other comments I've heard from the community is, we don't need that much hard surface, but yet I went to 3 or 4 meetings back when we did the playground design and heard from staff members that said, we don't have enough hard surface area at Shimmick. And I just went back the other day to check, and I think this is worth mentioning, and I don't belabor it, but I went back and pulled up a report that we did for Mann Elementary when we were working with the city on the city park. And we took the 9 city schools, Lincoln, Mann, Shimmick, all the ones that are in the city, Twain, there's 9 of them. And we did a playground comparison, and of all those 9, Shimmick has the largest site, but it had the least amount of square foot in playground, hard surface. It only had 8,000, and the average school in those 9 has 19,000 square feet of play surface for hard surface. So knowing that, this was a good opportunity. Now the other, and we might as well just put it out there, the other community comment was, well, that's where you were going to put the modulars when we renovated Shimmick. And the answer is yes, and we still can. Because as part of the project, we're putting in pier footings underneath that slab so that we can just back the units right on that slab for 1 year, put up the modulars, phase through the building, and then remove it. And the playground is still there. There'll be inconvenience for a year, but it's still a hard surface playground. But the concern was overflow parking for big events because they park down Gristle and out into the neighborhood, and it's not very convenient. The other comment I'd like to address is that the future addition. And I've been privy to that. You haven't. You will be soon. But we're talking about adding a gym to that building. We're talking about improving the entrance and making it secure like every other building in the district. And we're talking about moving the entrance, actually, to make it more ADA accessible. So there are some things that are in play that will not be adversely affected by anything we're doing with this sixplex or the hard surface playground.
Did the fire department specifically request that fire lane?
When we have our plan reviews, the fire marshal does that, and yes.
All right. And has the community of Shimmick been shown the drawings and the plans and everything like that?
I believe
that's been
so.
shared?
Chris is here this evening. He can come up and address that part of it. You want to come up, Chris?
Thank you. So the plans, the site plans we've shared those most recently with our PTO. That's the one opportunity that we've had so far to share those plans publicly. We just received them within the last month, so.
So it has been shared with the Shimmick community?
With our PTO, the
With the
members
PTO,
that
okay.
were there, yeah.
All right. $684,000 to move the sixplex, and that's your hard surface cost and a reinforced footings underneath the parking area.
Well, there's also another piece that may be a little bit more subtle on the drawings, but there's a retaining wall that has to be built behind that sixplex. So that's a pretty significant piece of that cost as well, because we're basically cutting back into the side of a hill. So there's a retaining wall there, and there's some ramps and some decks that are being built to make the building accessible.
What would it cost us to build 3 classrooms?
I was asked that question today, and I sat down, I compared it to Twain, I compared it to the budgets that we have on Garner and Wickham and a couple other ones now. And I honestly believe if you had a 2-classroom addition, you're talking about $600,000 for 2 classrooms, so you can divide that in half. But it's more than just a classroom, because you have to build the corridor space, and at some point you have to provide restrooms. So $300,000 is about $250 a foot, and that's about the going rate right now.
I also remind you the homeschool assistance program is pretty emphatic that they do not want to be inside one of our schools.
Said that before, yep. Any further comments or questions on Appendix 9? Is there a motion to approve, I guess it's item 28, Appendix 9?
So moved.
Second.
Any further comments? Kim, we're ready to vote.
Online voting is open.
Bless you.
All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with Directors Rotland, Ressler, Godwin, Clausen, Malone, and Eystone voting yea, and Director Hemingway voting nay.
Item 29, the Iowanet High Academy contract.
Yes. Concerns with this one. Can we get an explanation on why we're using this vendor in this service?
Go ahead, Lisa.
I can speak to that. I can speak to that one.
Just speak up. It looks like it's on.
It is.
I can speak to that one. I asked that this contract be put on the agenda. We've been looking for a solution for a couple of students who have been excluded from school for various reasons, mostly disciplinary. That Iowanet High Academy exists because of that specific population of students who can't, or at least won't, report to our school campuses. That was the reason that the vendor even created the company to begin with. So it normally used for an alternative to expulsion. For instance, at times we have students who have restraining orders who can't come on campus because of those sort of things. And the situations I'm involved with that I'm wanting to entertain this for are those kind of more extreme situations.
So we currently don't have an offering in our district for that student population that you're describing?
Not the student population of students who have been excluded from all campuses and have been determined to be dangerous, some sort of a danger to the campus, meaning that we wouldn't necessarily match them with any. Some of them have, involvement with law enforcement at different levels. We're working with juvenile court on providing some various services for students, but we really need for these students to be able to continue the credit accrual process so they can continue to advance toward graduation. Some of the students I'm talking about already have a lot of barriers and we don't want them to lack of high school diploma to be another one. So we're just looking for a way to serve them well.
Now, didn't we have some programming similar to that going on at Trek?
Not similar to that, no.
Well, I mean, didn't we house and educate students that have been expelled from their schools?
No, we don't have the ability to educate students who have actually been expelled. For some students, they would attend TREC as an alternative to expulsion. But I'm talking about situations where students have been determined to be a real danger and threat to teachers, other students, that kind of thing, is who I'm needing a solution for. We still need to and want to offer a free appropriate public education to all students with disabilities, regardless of any kind of status being determined by a court or a restraining order or anything like that. We still need to be able to serve students, and we do not have an online platform to be able to do that right now. Most of this coursework is hosted online, although they do assign students to teachers, certified teachers who would then meet with them electronically, and actual mentors who would meet face-to-face. Or we could also do that part ourselves, which I hope we would do at some point when it's appropriate.
So could you help me understand too? I did read the contract, but would we only contract with them on a per student basis? So it's not like an ongoing kind of fee. It's only if we have a particular student that fits the criteria, and then we would then.
Yes. Yes. There's no cost to have a contract. It just allows us to utilize their services for a student if we would think this was the right solution for a student. The other thing, kind of plug I want to put in here, is that occasionally we have cases that, and I'm just speaking from the special education department because those are the cases that are more urgent, and we have certain time frames that apply. We do have discipline situations, but equally as concerning, we have students who, for reasons that are either mental health or social emotional related, they're not going to come to school. They're dealing with a lot of large-scale issues and can't come to school right now because of a health or mental health situation. And so there could be times where this would be the right solution for that student too. So right now I'm talking about cases that are very far out of the ordinary while we're continuing to build our MTSS structures at all of our other buildings. We need a solution because right now we have students who are not completing a high school diploma, and that's going to have devastating effects for them.
Any further questions?
I was just going to ask if it's, sorry, but it's specifically high school age and courses, or?
Actually, they could serve middle level students also. That the cases I'm dealing with right now that I was thinking this could be a reasonable solution for happen to be high school students, but Iowa Net High Academy would serve junior high level students also.
So what's it going to look like for the kids?
There's a lot, and one reason why I had preferred to take a look at this particular vendor was because of the flexibility that they're willing to work with us on. Because these students are still our district students, and we want to maintain contact with them in some way, whatever way is appropriate at any given time. But they can assign mentors. We could assign our own mentors. They can provide special education services, but we would prefer to do that if possible for the student, and use our own teachers to do that. We can maintain any kind of ownership and contact for the students that we want to, and they're, I think, very open to working with us that way.
So is this going to be in their home, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Except that mentors from Iowa Net High Academy, if we use their mentors, they will meet students anywhere, and typically meet them actually at restaurants, because a lot of the students that they see need to have meals provided for them. So a lot of times they'll meet them at restaurant, anywhere they will go, or they could come to their house. We might go to a public location also, like we just would for a homebound situation. Or when the student is ready, we could have them come on campus for a limited amount of time, even like during extended hours when Tate is open, when not a lot of other students are there. Sometimes that we get students to come at that time who can't handle the stimulation of a whole school building. So I think there's a lot of flexibility involved. You know, first and foremost, we want students to walk away from us with a diploma. If they don't, they are doomed to a life of poverty very likely. So that's number one. But secondly, we also want to maintain contact and a caring relationship with our students whenever and however possible. So I think that would be customized for each individual.
And you mentioned, you know, kind of as we build into MTSS, and I very much get who these kids are and the kinds of situations they're dealing with. But then hopefully, right, as we develop that capacity, those are our folks that we can, I don't know, replicate the same kind of model or, you know, whatever they're doing to reach these kids. You know, it'd be nice if that we could just do that in-house.
Yeah, we could do something similar in-house right now if we had online coursework. We basically could provide all the other services. We do not have our coursework comprehensively created within an online platform is the main barrier to that.
So do they do their own? They have their own courses that they've designed that are online?
Yeah, one thing I really do like, though, is that they will create elective offerings with and for students based in community settings. So, you know, really wanting to get students to be either ongoing, you know, to pursue more education or at least employable immediately. And so they kind of work with students to design electives and also require service learning. That's not something that we require of all our graduates right now. So it's super important, especially if students that we're dealing with have somehow been an offender. They really work hard on talking to students about giving back to their community, being a valuable asset to their community, and starting that with service learning. So,
About how many kids are we talking about roughly?
How many are they currently serving?
No, just in our district. What, you know, what's our? I mean, I know it's not a percentage, right? But
yeah.
Is it a dozen? Is it 3 dozen? 2?
Right now, I'm wanting this solution to be available for only a few students. Although we could potentially have any student served who is currently not finishing with us. So however many students that is per year. We're losing some students now.
Is this going to take the place of like the Phoenix program?
Nope.
It's a totally separate thing.
No, I think what we want to achieve and what any school district would want to achieve within a healthy and robust MTSS system would be a lot of different kinds of solutions that we can match to a lot of different student kinds of issues. We want to be able to customize a solution for students that could, you know, that's not just a one-size-fits-all, and so we wouldn't want to look at any one thing as being the magic bullet, because there isn't going to be one thing that's the magic bullet. So this would just be one more trick in our bag of tricks that we could, and, you know, we're talking about a new TATE referral system also, which would essentially be a vetting committee that we could really kind of match to the most appropriate intervention, not just TATE. TATE's not going to serve all students who can't be served at the comprehensive campus right now.
I just had a quick question. You mentioned that there's an online component to this. So as a district, are we responsible for ensuring that students can actually access that? Meaning, are we providing them with Chromebooks? How do we know that they have internet services at home? What are our responsibilities to ensure that if we set this up, the students that we assign to this can actually use it?
We can if we elect to, and they could also provide that service if we elect to have them do it. But either way, all students would be provided with both internet access and the hardware to access the online platform.
Any other questions?
Primarily to have kids finish their diploma with this program, or is it to transition them from this program back into our system?
It could work either way. And I think the way that it's billed lends itself to whatever is appropriate for that individual would be. A lot of times by the time we're looking for a really customized solution like this, students, they just want to be done. And some of them are not going to want to come back to our campus. And so they could potentially finish. They actually get an Iowa City diploma, though. We transfer credits back, and they satisfy our graduation requirements with the credits that they offer. But some students, actually, we could have a 2-month placement if we needed to. It's billed by the month, so enrollment month. The actual per pupil cost split into 10. It's literally per month billing.
I'd be interested in seeing in about a year or so the numbers, and then over time, if the numbers are increasing, if we're transitioning kids back, if there could be, put something on the on the calendar to provide some sort of report so we know how it's working. And if one thing that I know you're on top of this far more than I, but I want to make sure that we are bringing kids back into our system when we can, and we don't just kind of use this as a crutch.
Yep.
Obviously, we want to provide the services they need, but if we can bring them back into our system, I think that's that's the goal.
Thank you for mentioning that. That's true for any intervention that we entertain putting in place. Is that we don't want to provide a way to not have students access our good and desirable face-to-face instruction and all of the enrichments that our campuses and full program have to offer. There's a lot that we have to offer at all campuses that students won't be accessing by going with a purely online option that's done by a different entity. Has to be so that this is really the solution for this student in order to get a diploma. And if we don't allow this, they're probably not going to get a diploma. It is an intervention right now. It's not an alternative that I'm not proposing it to be an alternative that's a magnet program or anything like that. People would just say, well, I just really prefer this. These are students who we don't have the ability to offer something to right now, and because of that, they're probably not going to graduate. That's my suggestion for the use of this program, and I think whether or not we use it more broadly, that can be determined over time. But right now, I have students sitting here who are not going to get a diploma, and that's terrifying because they already have enough barriers. They don't need to walk away from us without a diploma too.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Lisa.
How long has it been how long has it been established? I mean, how long have they been doing this? I guess I didn't find it.
I would have to ask Dr. Knight that. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's been a while.
5 years, 10 years?
I wouldn't want to say without asking because I'm
Okay.
just not sure. But yeah, I'm sure. I'm pretty sure it's been more than 5 years.
If there are no other comments or questions, is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve item
29.
29 as presented.
Second.
Any further comment? If not, Kim, we're ready to vote.
Online voting is open.
Lost my screen there. I'm a nay, so.
Okay. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with Directors Rotland, Ressler, Godwin, Clausen, Malone, and Eystone voting yea, and Director Hemingway voting nay.
Thank you.
Can I just add one more comment? Could we have that information added to our, let's see, is it the student enrollment report that provides the information on or is it the annual progress report that provides on how many students we have in different programs? Can we have this element added to that report next time that report is provided?
I think it's such a small number that I'm not sure it would work to
Might be
publicly
public.
report it, because,
Too small.
I mean, we are only talking a handful of students or less, and so I think if that end gets larger than that, we could put a line item in, and then it could be a NA unless it gets larger than the 10, and then we could report out on that, but that's something we could add in routinely, but you probably wouldn't see a value there unless it reached
Okay.
a number that was safe to report out, if that makes sense.
Maybe just to acknowledge that you can't report it for that reason would be helpful in the report, so we keep tabs on it.
Okay, Champions Interagency Agreement.
Yes, this is, why are we using a Portland, Oregon firm for our before and after-school program?
I'm assuming there was an RFP process that we went through. Do you want to describe that, Steve or Joan?
There was, I'll let Amy talk to that first,
Amy,
and
thank
then we'll
you.
let Joan speak to
Yeah,
that.
so the same RFP process was used for Lucas. It's been used with the 5 previous BASPs, Grant, Hoover, Hills, Alexander, and Garner. It's posted to our website on April 1st. Questions were due by April 10th. We did receive a set of questions from one of the vendors. There were 3 proposals that came in. Those were due on April 26th. And a team was organized at the building level, which had representation from 3 Lucas staff members and 3 parents. Principal Dr. Jenkins, as well as Amy Mentier and Joan Vandenberg, sat on the sidelines. Although Joan and Amy helped facilitate the process, they were not involved in any of the scoring, as has been typical.
Say that again, who was on the scoring team?
So the 3 parents, as well as the 3 Lucas staff members, and those Lucas staff members did not include the principal.
Okay.
Then they received a folder with the proposals, code of ethics, score sheets, and that team of 9 then met on April 29th, and the team of 6 who had scored the proposals shared those results, and there was a clear winner that came to the top, which was Champions. Then Joan and Amy from there are responsible for answering any follow-up questions that may have come from that opportunity when the committee met that night, and notification has gone out, and we've posted it to board docs for your approval. So just as a reminder, they also did win the award recently for Grant and Hoover Elementary.
Any other comments? Do we need Joan to comment on this, or do we need more information?
I'll just say that I don't feel like I have enough information. I reached out to you today, as you know, and it didn't work for us to connect today, but I would have appreciated a little more time to get more information about the different proposals that were submitted, and just to have a longer conversation than just right here at the table. So just expressing that to you, that if we can try to allow more time in the future for these things so that we have time to fully educate ourselves and make truly a decision that we're comfortable with. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I'd say to him, I'm just a little bit worried that we've got kind of our BASPs that have been super local, only local, and now we've got an Oregon company coming in that's won 3, and I guess I just wonder, and I appreciate the process, right? The buildings are making those decisions, and parents and staff are voting, and they're looking at all that. It just feels, why Portland, Oregon? How are they interested in Iowa City? And I think, I'm a little worried. We go from kind of a local, super nonprofit, parent-run sort of organizations to kind of national companies coming in, and it's just, I don't know. I don't feel fully comfortable. It doesn't sit great with me, and that may be just me projecting a lot of stuff, but it does seem weird that we have 3 of our schools are going to be BSPs run, when in the past, do we have any out-of-state? Have we ever had any out-of-state companies run BASPs? So I guess that feels like a concerning trend. Just make that comment.
And I can speak to this just a little bit. I'm a buy local sort of gal too, and so I understand your concern. And we're trying this, and we are giving them just a one-year contract rather than continue on for perpetuity like we do everybody else. And so I think there is that we don't want to lose the local flavor. I will mention that of the 5 RFPs that we've done before, 3 of them were parent-run boards that could no longer do it. I think because there's a capacity issue of how much can a volunteer parent board actually do, and then especially if there's a complicated personnel issue or some finances that are difficult to manage. So this is the first parent-run board that chose not to do this. The previous ones, have said we don't have enough parents to make this work. And there's another another BSAP that has been visiting with us too, saying we just don't know if we can do this. So I think there's a sweet spot there, and we'll see how this goes. I think we're testing the waters.
Yeah, I appreciate the one-year contract, for sure.
So would you put this out to bid again? Or is there is there a renewal process for the current?
Yeah, so then we'll do a renewal process for the 1 year, but being a brand new vendor, unknown to us, it seemed like a way to address those concerns.
I was just going to ask, were the 3 parents, I assume they have current students in the before and after, and will continue after this year?
And previously.
Okay.
Just one other quick question. By any chance, was the review of the proposals like a blind review? Or did they know who they were reviewing when they looked at the
They
proposals?
knew who they were reviewing. And we had them sign a code of ethics that they were looking at the application. It was confidential, and that they evaluated what they were reviewing and not to contact others. So we tried to keep it kind of a tight, controlled, ethical procedure.
Yeah, I share a lot of comments that have been expressed by other board members, and I agree with JP that, I'm concerned that, when we give up local control of our before and after school programs to somebody out of state, is that the best thing for our community? And that I'm also concerned about the large tentacles of for-profit educational companies and how they can affect decision-making and how decisions are made that way. So I'm really concerned that this is a very large company, and this is only the start.
And I do want to remind the board that we have local control because we do have them sign the interagency agreement. So, there's certain parameters that we're having them follow to meet our district expectations. So we're not giving away all of our control to somewhere in Oregon.
Fair enough. And I think the other question for me, if we've gone through an objective sourcing process and the scoring criteria are such that this company won and our local options did not, then how can we better, create a community action around before and after school programs here locally so that they have so parent boards have the capacity so that we can have winning bids locally? That's I don't know how to address that, but I get the concern around a local support for, but if we don't have winning bids locally, I just don't know how to address that. We need to figure out a way to get our local community supporting BSPs and coming in with winning bids. I don't know how to do that, but any other comment on this? Are we ready to vote? Is there a motion to approve item 31?
So moved.
Second.
President Godwin, before we vote, I just want to go on record that I will be abstaining from this vote. Some community members approached me regarding my connection to the previous before and after school program, as well as Lucas. In full disclosure, I served on this board for 6-7 years when my daughter was there, and did a lot of the hiring for current people that are still there, or some of the hiring, I should say. So that's the rationale behind my decision to abstain tonight.
Okay, thanks, Martina. Okay, I think we're ready to vote. Kim?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with Directors Rutland, Ressler, Godwin, and Clausen voting yea, and Eystone, voting yea. Director Hemingway voting nay, and Director Malone abstaining.
Thank you. Okay, we will move to the public hearing portion of the agenda. First up, Minh Elementary School Playground Project.
Now is the time and place for the public hearing on the proposed plans and specifications for the Minh Elementary School Playground Project. The Board of Directors set the date for this public hearing on April 23rd, 2019. Notice of the public hearing was published in the Iowa City Press Citizen on April 24th, 2019. The district will receive bids on the project at 10:30 a.m. May 6, 2019 at the Facilities Management Department office located at 1137 South Riverside Drive, Iowa City, Iowa 52246. Notice to contractors was published as required by law on multiple statewide plan rooms and on the Iowa City Community School District website on April 24, 2019. Are there any questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public?
Thank you. That closes that public hearing. Next up, 2018-2019 Certified Budget Amendment.
Now is the time and place for the public hearing on the district's proposed fiscal year 2019 certified budget amendment. Notice the public hearing was published in the Iowa City Press Citizen on April 30th, 2019. Are there any comments from the board? Is there anyone from the audience that would like to advise or provide comments to the board on the proposed fiscal year 2019 certified budget amendment?
All right, thank you. That closes that public hearing. Moving to presentations, we've got our third quarter financial report. Any highlights to make?
There's, this is your typical report that we provide you 4 times a year. There have been several updates as far as on the dashboard, the projections, and everything looks really good and strong for our district. 21 still looks a little tight as far as the budget, but those are the highlights.
Other questions or comments from directors?
This is our last quarterly report we'll be getting from you, Craig.
That's it.
Thank you for your work.
Yeah, I would echo that too. Thanks, Craig. It's really been a pleasure.
Standing O.
We're gonna miss you.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
I think it's just a presentation.
Oh, it's a presentation. Sorry, my head's already in action items. Sorry. Okay, so any further comments? If not, we'll move on to the Grant Elementary School update.
So you have 2 items attached there. You've got the report from FRK, and you also have the bi-state report with the slide deck that goes along with it. The project continues to remain on pace. Obviously, our spring weather has been cooperative, and things are moving forward with our planned timeline.
All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Now we can start voting again. Action items. First up is a transfer appeal. We have 3 options: to take no action, take action to approve the request for transfer, and take action to deny this request for transfer. I think our traditional approach is to take no action. Okay, we will move on. Next up is the district developed service delivery plan for special education.
Yeah. Good evening. So I'm just going to go back over a lot of information that we've covered in various presentations and sessions before. I know that people on who are watching on TV or maybe here tonight may have not been able to be at the work session or different times when I've kind of recapped this process. So I'm going to go over a short history. But basically, I'm coming tonight to ask approval for what is the culmination of about 15, 16 months worth of work across really the community and across the district in adopting a new district-developed service delivery plan for special education. So I'm excited to be kind of done with the formal part of the process and getting to fully implement the plan as soon as it's adopted. So again, just a reminder that this plan is required by law by the Iowa Administrative Rules of Special Ed. All districts in Iowa have to have one. It's basically used to describe the service continuum, caseload, and how we are monitoring those caseloads across the district. How do we plan to live up to our need for student outcomes that we have, assurances, and with some sort of stakeholder input. Normally, that just looks like a planned committee. Our process was much more extensive, and that's what I'll talk more about. Of course, everything in special education really is to ensure that the district is able to meet the standards of IDEA, which is the federal legislation. So, the timeline. The update of the plan was required by the corrective action plan that the district went through. The district did go through the expected process to update the plan, and just as I was coming into my position here, I recommended that plan draft for adoption in August of 2017. The board at that time did ask about how many public comments we had received, and the answer was we hadn't received any, and that was not in any way out of the ordinary in my experience for when I've been in other districts and we've updated the plan. Which I think is unfortunate, but it's unfortunately not unusual to not receive any. But the board at that time, and I think keep saying, and I mean this, that insightfully thought, well, that's maybe people didn't know it was out for public comment, and maybe they hadn't had an adequate time to, be able to, or opportunity to be able to respond to it. So we posted that plan again, also mailed it to homes of all students with IEPs, and we did get some public comments back that caused us to start the entire process over, and really designed a process that was intended to get a much wider body of input for us to base a new plan on. So we conducted a community survey, and then some follow-up phone interviews and focus groups. We had over 1,000 survey responses. So that's what we felt was a really wide body of information to base the plan on. So then we went through a process with a few different stakeholder groups to analyze themes, and came up with 6 broad themes, one specifically being service delivery, and then some other things that we know are not going to be part of the service delivery plan, just because that has kind of an expected format and some expected contents, but some things that we put off to the side in a different parking place that I'll talk about in a few minutes here. But then we went about drafting the plan and vetting that through different stakeholder groups again, posted for public comment from March 15th to April 25th. The public comment could have been emailed to me just in anecdotal notes, or we also decided to put an online kind of survey per page of the plan to hopefully prompt some more input. The concerns that have been addressed in the plan specifically, there was a lot of input that indicated that there may not be enough individualization of services, and not that IEP teams didn't quite have enough latitude to design services for individuals. Just as I was saying a few minutes ago, try to design the specific solutions that will address, and in this case, disability-related needs specifically. IEP teams didn't feel like they had very much latitude to do that. That sometimes it felt like services were organized into places or destinations or locations. instead of thinking of them as kind of a web of supports that an IEP team is free to sort of weave for a student. So we feel like that has been a big priority in how we even visually represent this plan, and specifically how we train people to use it. So we also wanted to make sure that it's loud and clear. I keep saying if someone in California brings up our plan draft on the district website, I want them to say, well, I can tell what these people are about. That special education students are general education students first and always, and that students with disabilities, the success of students with disabilities is a shared responsibility between general educators and special educators, that we're for equitable access to educational opportunities, that we expect our students with disabilities to be achieving at high levels and achieve outcomes that we want and require for all students, and that our mission applies to all. Now, sometimes we say all, but between the lines, you can, even in some of written plans, sometimes you can read they don't really mean all. So we really wanted for, again, anyone who brings up the plan to know that we mean all. The mission is for all, not just some. So then, that the purpose of special education really is to enable access to the Iowa core and enriching experiences. And again, we could go back to what I had commented on a few minutes ago, that our program, our regular program in our schools, we offer a lot more beyond just credit accrual or just academic experiences. We've got a lot built into experiences that students get that are just what we would consider enriching. And that we want our students with disabilities to have access to the supports they need in order to participate in that entire experience. We want the Iowa City experience for all students. That services should be provided in the least restrictive environment and could be provided anywhere, not based on program model or place. So as we were looking through our comments, which we did receive, we think that about 50 people took our survey, and we say about because people had the option of surveying for each page, and so some people went through and didn't survey for every page, and so some pages had more responses than others, but it looks like about 50 respondents, which we thought was a pretty good number. That, some of the comments made by people, because there was the ability to enter comments, not just rate pages, but that we really, really need to make sure that people understand why. What is it that we're really after? Not just the nuts and bolts of how we're going to logistically do business, but what are that larger why? And the answer is equity. It's equity of educational opportunity, that we want to provide access for all of our students, including students with disabilities. An organized communication plan, which is our next order of business. We've already been working on some ideas, and actually we've, in our vetting process, bringing the plan out to some specific stakeholder groups. I think we've gotten some insight about how to go about it. We talked a lot about in the work session, something that I just want to make sure and bring up again. If we want compliance, what we can do is we can copy a plan and we can distribute it, and we just pass it out and then say, here's what you do. But if we want quality, we have to coach it. We have to coach it into place. We have to make sure that people have the right information, but most importantly, that they know how to use it as guidance for not just, designing a specific recipe, but really for the artful part of IEP writing, that people understand how to use it as a guide. And so while we're designing our communication plan here, we need to take that into account, that it has to be coached into place, because one of the things that we really believe is that that our teachers are highly trained professionals, and that they will do what's right for students. But they have to know and internalize what the guidance of the plan means in order to use it that way. So coaching and investing in the professional learning of our teachers and staff is something that has to happen in order to use this plan correctly. So we want to inspire leadership with our principals and teacher leaders, and that principals should feel confident as the LEA reps in IEP meetings, and that they are, legitimate resource allocators and are certified and qualified to oversee instruction and programming within their buildings, and that if they need a higher level of resources, they know where to go to get those, and that they can have confidence that what they need in their buildings will be supplied for them. And teacher leaders also with having those same confidences, because the real artful part of IEP writing, really a lot of the ideas that can make the difference will come from teachers on the team. So we just really want to make sure that our teachers know that we believe in them to do that work. And then inclusion of our Grantwood AEA partners, I think, is something that we've done increasingly so and is going very well. The whole project of rewriting the plan and getting all of the input and information was a partnership with Grantwood AEA. And if you remember, we have Beth Steenwick's contract, which I think also is on the consent for tonight, but her contracting so far has been a partnership with Grantwood AEA. They've incurred half the cost. So we've gotten to spend a lot of time with Beth planning things out, and not just as a district, but as a Grantwood AEA partnership too. So that's been great. So then we need to differentiate assistance to buildings and teams, and we know that that's going to be necessary because our buildings aren't identical to each other. They all have their own identities. They all have their unique qualities. They're all in a little bit different place relative to any given criteria on this plan. And so we need to differentiate our support from the district level to help all buildings grow forward from where they are. So again, I said we had over 1,000 survey responses, did extensive analysis on a number of levels of that information to derive the themes, over 50 public comments. The plan has been approved by Grantwood AEA, which has to happen before it comes to you. So their special education director has approved it, and I'm recommending it for board approval tonight. Our next steps are, of course, training and communication during this whole next school year, because we're never going to be there. We're always going to be in some process of getting it more and more and more entrenched. It's not a we're not doing it now and we're going to do it. It's we're doing all of these things now to some extent. We're just going to perfect the way we're doing it, the support with which we're doing it, and just see it more as continuous improvement. And then, most importantly, we're going to support a culture of learning and innovation through emphasis on coaching and authentic professional learning, PLC collaboration. This is the kind of plan that requires that highly knowledgeable professionals participate in organized and productive dialogue around how we best program for our students. We also, when I was talking about that parking place, that we put some of the things in, some more specific things than what would be appropriate to put into this plan. Some specific instructional strategies and that sort of thing are being organized into our continuous improvement plan for special education, which we're working on now. Now that we have the plan done, we'll design the rollout plans and then also continue to work on that continuous improvement plan. The main ideas of that plan, I'm still planning to post for public consumption.
Questions for Lisa? Thank you.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. It really feels like kind of, you mentioned at the beginning, coming in under corrective action, kind of closing the book on that and really opening up a new book and a new way of doing things. I'm excited to see the implementation and how kind of creatively, and what I love, because I know, the obstacle of implementing this is kind of turning a culture around or inspiring a new culture. But I think the way you've identified this through the professional learning and the continuous improvement and the communication piece, and from the beginning kind of including the community more and parents, I'm really optimistic and excited to see where this goes. So thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. Compliance is meant to be a minimum bar. We're not going to strive for a minimum bar. So of course, we want compliance, we expect that. We have to have that, and we will, and we do. But what we're really wanting goes so much further beyond that. We don't want the minimum for any of our students.
Echo JP's thanks for driving and leading such a robust process and one that's so focused on equity for all of our students. So thank you, Lisa. Any further comments from directors? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. Next up is the 2018-19 budget amendment. Any commentary?
Unless you have questions.
All right, is there a motion to approve?
I vote to approve the recommended 2018-19 budget amendment.
Second.
Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. Next up is the ICEA Teachers Negotiated Agreement. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Next up, the ICEA Paraeducators Negotiated Agreement.
I move that we approve the ICA Paraeducator Negotiate Agreement.
Second.
Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
And finally, the SEIU Physical Plant Negotiated Agreement.
I move that we approve the SEIU Physical Plant Negotiated Agreement.
Second.
Kim, ready to vote?
One comment,
Oh.
Miss,
Oh,
My brother-in-law, I'm under the same roof, and I have always abstained from voting on his salary, because I don't think it's fair to vote on a family member's salary. So I'm going to abstain from this vote. Not that I don't support it.
Janet, one comment.
Yes, please.
I just want to extend the same thank you to Brady that he extended to all of us, and to Jim Jacobson from the SAIU. It was a pleasure to work with them all this year, and the public doesn't see all the hard work that our associations put into negotiations, because we do a lot of it behind the scenes. And so just publicly, I want to thank them for their collaboration in those efforts. But more importantly, all of our employees, their collaboration, their support, and the positive attitude they bring to work each and every day for our students. I think it's reflected in our association leadership. So thank you to Brady and his team.
Yep, very good. I was actually going to say something at the end of our votes, but you beat me, which is fantastic, because we can just continue to note that great collaboration, trusting, work together, supporting teachers in the classroom, paraeducators, and in the case of SEIU, this time the physical plant. I mean, everyone contributes to our school culture and contributes to the education and growth of our students, and it's great to be able to work with SEIU and ICEA in such a collaborative way. Really do appreciate it.
and Jen, I'd just comment, and it's not just that. I love, and Chase and Brady, shout out to you, is a lot. You really represent the district in a lot of this, and the tone that you set makes a difference. So good collaboration between the board and admin and the groups, and then between the groups as well. I think everybody, you really get the idea that everybody's looking out for one another, and nobody's trying to get theirs and exclude other folks. So I think that entire culture is something we should be proud of and maintain.
Yeah, well said. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Kim, I think we're ready to vote.
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with Directors Rutland, Ressler, Godwin, Clausen, Malone, and Eystone voting yea, and Director Hemingway abstaining.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, Director Liaison Report. Directors, anything you would like to comment on? Lots going on this time of year. None?
Yeah, sorry.
I go fast, sorry.
I
Phil,
know, that's
please
okay.
go ahead.
That's all right. That's probably what a lot of you have been waiting for anyway. a lifelong dream of mine has been realized, and my wife and I purchased a piece of property in which I can relocate my business and live on the same piece. We're not moved into it yet, but it is in another school district. It's still in Johnson County. I've always been a lifelong resident of Johnson County. I don't know if anyone's here from the Press Citizen, but they never seem to get that right, other than when I was living overseas. And I do have permanent residency status in Belize. I still maintain it. I can still go there if I want. But anyway, at some point in time, I will, with my duties here and running my business and everything else, get my house renovated to move in. And at that point, I will have to resign from the board because I will no longer be in the Iowa City Community School District. I wish, and I know my wife has always been asking me, when is that going to be? But it's going to be in the relatively near future. I had every desire to finish out my term, but I will not make November that way, Ani. So just wanted to make everyone aware of that's going to be out there at some point in time.
Thank you for sharing, Phil, and congratulations on getting that lifelong dream together. That's exciting news to hear for you and your family. I want to thank you for all of your service, and you keep us posted.
I'm not done yet. You can save you can save that for the final one if you wish.
Just keep us posted if there's anything we can do to help.
I'm waiting for Dwayne to offer a tradesman to make it even faster, but he had a golden opportunity, but I guess that's gotten past him.
School project? I don't know.
I'm sure we could do home building. That might be one way to get the home building program back in the school district. Would be to start working on my kitchen.
I just wanted to make 2 comments. I've been visiting some of our elementary schools because that was one of the things that I ran on, and it's important for me, my belief as a board member, to get out in schools and see some of our decisions, how that plays. And I had the pleasure of visiting with Van Allen and Twain administrators. And just to keep it really simple, I always end with asking them if they had a magic wand and the board could give them anything that they requested. The top answer that I have been hearing is more mental health support. So I'm going to leave that there for a future discussion because I have several more school visits coming up this week, and I imagine that will be a running theme, as well as that was a concern in talking with Molly Page surrounding the Sandy Hook Promise. I did encourage her to reach out to all of the board members because that's something that, if that's a path we want to go down, it's not a one-person decision. That would have to be something that the entire board gets behind. So hopefully she'll be reaching out to some of you pretty soon.
Thank you, Dan.
I just wanted to comment on a couple of things I touched, that I did, but also, Ruthina, I think eventually when we get to the safety committee topic that's on our work session in June, I think that mental health piece will come out because we covered that a lot in this softening approach. I just wanted to make a couple notes on some of the things that I did and was able to attend. The Excellence in Education Awards that were held at the Englert recognized a lot of our students and staff. That was an excellent awards thing to go to. Also, Silver Salute that recognized all of our retiring teachers and 25-year teachers. Big shout out to the foundation and for putting that on, putting Janet and I to work as servers that day. Also, I went to the Hani Al-Qadi art reception, and I mentioned that as a reminder that tomorrow at 5:30 there's an art reception here as well, so I encourage everyone to attend that. And I just wanted to make one more note, since it's on there, Ruthina, that I did read against Steve in the finals at Hoover. I did have the same book, Rock, Paper, Scissors, and Steve had a Star Wars book.
Well, that's not fair.
But here's how great it was, is that the kid that was wearing the Star Wars shirt voted for my book. So it did win, so it wasn't just luck.
I renew my objection that you cheated.
I second that.
So recommend to all the parents watching out there, the book, The Legend of Rock, Paper, Scissors is clearly a winner amongst a lot of students. So if you don't have that book, I recommend you get it. That was all.
Just a quick note, the art reception is at 5.
Sorry.
Yeah.
5.
Alrighty, okay. Anything else from directors?
Well, when talking about the Silver Salute, I think and it's a beautiful ceremony, and it was, when you see 2,169 years worth of institutional knowledge go out the door, it's a loss. But the cheesy bells that we gave everybody this year, and when they rang them, half of them came apart. I think in the future we can appropriate a bell that will actually ring once for the ceremony that way. So I think that we can do that. Maybe a medals program we could have students make bells for our retiring staff.
Phil's must have been a scout because he was always prepared, because the bell that fell apart at our table, he immediately whips out a tool and says, I can fix that, and starts putting it back together for him.
That's great. Well, the Silver Salute's always a wonderful event. Kristen, I know you put a lot of time and energy making that happen, and then Susan does a nice job with the Education's Everybody's Breakfast, too, so both events were really, really nice. If there's nothing else on our liaison reports, agenda setting, we've got a few things coming up. On May 21st, we've got Education Committee, and our agenda for that is
Fine arts.
Fine arts.
I would add, Steve, could we maybe have a discussion about the structure of that next year and bringing folks in and inviting staff to?
Yep, and I've already had a conversation with Brady about working with their team for that showcase formula.
Great.
Yep.
So thanks for adding that to that agenda.
So I've asked a couple of times to have the preschool item added to this agenda, and it's not added. So are we not interested in getting that report next
From
week?
the preschool committee? Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Maybe it's an oversight, but yeah, I was hoping because I know that the committee's ready to.
It'd be nice
report.
to get that before the end of the school year, for sure. Yeah, that's a great catch. Thanks, Lori. Anything else on Ed Committee? We've got a public hearing following the Ed Committee, so it's a special board meeting for that one topic. Then, then we go to, we do not have a board meeting on the 28th because that's the Tate High School graduation, and so we are not having a meeting that night. Our next board meeting would be June 11th. We've got a closed session around land acquisition, and then we've got a board agenda with a consent agenda. We've got a variety of presentations, equity committee update, the tree canopy study, annual sustainability report, annual asset protection report, annual workplace safety report, and the quarterly facilities master plan update. That is the proposed agenda for June 11th, a regular board meeting, and then our work session is student survey results from the University of Iowa Public Policy Project, and then the topic on the School Safety Advisory Committee. Within, you'd mentioned the Sandy Hook Promise, the mental health support. I know there's going to be some additional conversation that we want to have as a board around resource officers and those sorts of topics that came up just from the last recommendation from the Safety Committee. So I think it's just a general conversation around those recommendations.
I know Molly Page wasn't part of the safety committee, but she's the one that has a lot of the Sandy Hook Promise information. So I'm hopeful that we can invite her to be part of that discussion at night. Maybe.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I don't want to invite someone if we're not going to get to it necessarily.
Not what?
If we're not going to get to that topic necessarily. I know that we have a pretty heavy work session agenda that we're supposed to accomplish in an hour and 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Which
But
may
I
get some
mean, I
items
think
pushed on that.
she's
It's
really
a part
passionate,
of the
but if
discussion. I
you-
agree.
Yeah.
The safety committee all heard her presentation too. So I think if it's something that as a board we decide that we want to explore, I have no issues having her come back. I just want to make sure we're at that point before we invite her.
Okay.
On the on the June 11th meeting, Matt, would we be in a position to have a secondary discussion on our career and tech alignment, junior high and high school, or is that pushing it?
I think a little bit of it will just depend on what conversation we have tonight at the work session, or if we have the conversation, but we can come back. I mean, that would mean if we don't get into that conversation too much tonight, we could definitely come back on the 11th with that.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Well, if we could just put a placeholder possibly for that pending
Sure.
the discussion tonight.
And maybe we can just assess after tonight whether we need to put that on that agenda. I mean, let's make sure to cross that when we get there. Okay,
One other question.
yes.
And maybe this is for Steve. Do we still need to have a June 4th meeting? Is there a special meeting then?
We are working on that.
Okay.
Okay. Is there anything else for the good of the cause on agenda setting? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.